Welcome back, everybody, to the movie date with Rob and Matt. This is a podcast for people who love talking about movies but do not want to be too smug about it. I'm Matt.
I'm Rob.
And, I mean...
we have a guest here.
We have a guest here today.
A friend here.
Well, introduce yourself, man.
Hi, my name's Blake.
Hey, Blake. Glad to have you with us. You're here for a milestone episode.
I feel like this is the episode, like Infinity War is like what Marvel's leading to, and this is like our Infinity War.
I was talking to Blake about like when I first started up doing the show with you. I was like the junior detective on watching you like going through packs of cigarettes with your cork board, and like he showed
throwing it out the window.
Snyder showed it in this picture right here, and then if you look, Jason Momoa said this, and I'm like, my narration brain was like, I thought he was crazy. It all seemed to make sense.
I'm Matthew McConaughey in True Detective.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting there, just like cracking open cans of Lone Star, like, well, I thought he was crazy. I was a total nihilist to the whole situation.
Life's a flat circle, just like the Snyder Cut.
It's never going to happen.
The cylinder of film reels.
He showed me the picture of the film reels, and I thought it was just a joke. But it turns out, as time went on and the pieces started coming together,
I won him over, baby.
It was more like a detective novel you'd find in like the Christian fiction section, where I was the atheist coming on board, and slowly, like by the end, I'm like, maybe it was the faith I found along the way, and it came true.
Given all the religious imagery in Snyder's movies,
This is actually very fitting.
It's a very apropos.
So it's closer to 7 than anything else.
Yeah.
This
My dark
is
obsession drives away everyone who cares about me. It's out there. I know it is.
and as the trumpets play and the armies of the Lord come down, you're like, I knew it. This is the
it's the Snyder Cut
it's the
episode.
Snyder Cut episode.
It's out. It's been released. I've seen it a bunch of times, probably like 3 or 4, to be honest.
Have you watched it in black and white yet?
No, I haven't, because it's probably gonna be.
It's not in the black and gray morality version.
Justice is Gray, I think.
Justice is Gray edition. Yeah.
No, it's actually it's on HBO.
I'm gonna have some fun with this a little bit.
All right, that's fine. If nothing else, this is a place where you can have as much fun as you want. And I'll start off by saying something. Is this has been a long journey coming on here. My old co-host was quite the curmudgeon at times about like movies that should be a lot of fun. So I would just like to say thank you, Matt, for putting up with my Zack Snyder tangents over the course of the years.
Very entertaining.
Yeah,
this has all been very entertaining. I'm sad to see it go.
I'm smart enough to know that I'm a huge Zack Snyder stan if you're a first-time listener, and Matt has been very gracious to put up with my tangents over each episode. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but instead it's 6 degrees of Zack Snyder. It all leads back to him or whatever.
It's amazing how much it does.
Yeah. He's a director that I like very much, and I find a lot of joy in his films. So thank you for letting me talk about it this much and not giving me any shit about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm somebody who's had my deep criticisms for him before, and I've more or less sort of chilled out about it after discovering that he's a pretty solid dude as a human being. And I appreciate his.
He's no Joss Whedon.
Yeah, this has also been the iceberg that has finally sank Joss Whedon, who has projects that I've always loved. You know, like we won't get into the whole thing about it, but you know, like
Firefly, it's all right.
Firefly was made for me. Like it's a kind of sci-fi I really love. They did it better in the anime. Which one? Probably all of them he stole from.
What does Mark Twain say? Good artists borrow, great ones steal.
It's a history of everything.
He's fairly well canceled at this point, though, right?
Yeah. He got kicked off the Nevers by his own decision. No, it wasn't. I don't believe that for a second.
I thought you were talking about Mark Twain for a second.
No,
kind of like Zack Snyder leaving Justice League on his own accord.
Well, it's probably true.
50-50 considered. Reading about I see 50-50.
It's true. Like they cover that in the book, and it was very much a thing where it's like he did leave, but then they jumped at the opportunity to be like, oh, let's let Jeff Johns sort of drive the ship, and let's bring in Joss Whedon, and
they shut the doors on him and changed the lock keys.
I feel like part of it, and what I've read, the book maybe reveals something different about that, but like I feel like part of it was basically they kept taking so much creative control away from Zack, and that it ended up culminating with the events that caused him.
I don't want to get too much into the tea because I've gone over it so many times on the episode. The long and short version is after BVS didn't break $1 billion, a ridiculous stipulation that all these movies must make $1 billion or they are not successful, because that's just not true. like plenty of movies are successful but don't break $1 billion or whatever. After that happened, they did a rewrite of his Justice League script, which is this movie that we're about to talk about. And Jeff Johns and John Berg were brought in to, as he puts it, sort of babysit him. And he says, "That's right, Willow. It's ridiculous behavior."
The dogs in here listed this like, that's some corporate bullshit.
Yeah, and he said he was very quite nice about it. He says, like, I never took too much offense to it. It's just ideas, and if they were ideas I liked, I would take them, and if they weren't, I didn't. And then his daughter tragically committed suicide. He left the project, and I think Jeff Johns was like, okay, instead of steering Snyder 10% closer towards what I want, I'll just bring in Joss Whedon, and he'll do whatever we want, and he'll make a big, fun, corporate, mediocre movie. I know I kicked that movie a lot. We did an episode on it, but it's
Oh, you've done an episode on that.
Yeah,
one.
we
I
did.
haven't
On
listened.
the
My fault.
theatrical
I haven't listened to it. I probably should have done my homework on that.
It's we said it was I like it less than Matt does for obvious reasons because I know more of what's behind it.
Well, it's also not a matter like I also like it's fine, but kind of like we've talked about like certain director's cuts and things. You can go back to those original and say you don't need to watch that one anymore.
Yeah.
Now the original Justice League is
I'm keeping it. I'm not getting rid of it. as a
Cinema
reminder.
non grata. Like it's like you don't need to watch it but I mean, we'll get to it how much the central bones of that movie are or are not the central bones of this extended vision.
We were both pretty like it's mediocre, it's fine, and offensiveless is sort of how I put it.
Right.
Which is sort of
I've seen it once.
yeah, and
That was enough. Like I was just disappointed. I didn't even go see it in theaters, honestly.
I did. I Phantom Menaced it hard because I thought that the best way to get his version was to defend that version, and that wasn't true. It turns out, but it is what it is. But I don't want to go over the past too much.
Sorry.
This is about the future. We're looking towards the
It's about the
future,
present
baby,
and the future.
and it is time for us to talk some movie news. The only two ones I have is new Suicide Squad trailer. Anybody want to talk about it?
I sure do. I didn't know we were gonna have movie news today.
We'll just like to a piece. of
Okay,
movie.
yeah. Obviously, like of the DC, I've mentioned like of the coming DCU things. This has been probably the one I'm most excited for, because I dig that James Gunn. He's got a slick style. It really shows this. It looks like a lot of fun. The cast looks like a lot of fun. The costume designs look like a lot of fun. Obviously, they're not going to show too much because it's just going to be a kill 'em all fest.
Yeah,
And
I imagine so.
This is one I'm really going to want to see in theaters. I mean, it looks like a blast.
I
man.
loved it, aside from maybe two things, and they're really sort of dependent on like what they end up doing in the movie. Have you seen the trailer, Blake?
I saw part of it. I didn't.
Do you want to
finish
watch it real quick? We'll edit it out.
We can. I'm not invested in that movie.
Really?
I'm not. It just solidifies the fact that we won't get to see what Ayer wanted to do with it originally.
Well, things can always change.
Also, it should be known a lot of people are kind of like, and we'll get to it about that. But executive produced by Zack and Deborah Snyder.
This
Yeah.
one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, they're on board with it, and they like James Gunn. James Gunn likes
James
them.
Gunn wrote Dawn of the Dead together.
Yeah.
There's
No,
a
I
picture of them at the premiere, like making weird faces.
I like James Gunn. What I don't like is the direction, the course correct that basically put all this like trying to lighten the tone of all the DC movies. Whereas I want dark and gritty DC movies. That's where my problem with it lies, and that's why I was like, okay, this just is making it to where I'm not gonna eventually get to see what David Ayer
James Gunn
wanted
is
to
a
do.
lot of things. I don't know how dark this movie is. In fact, one of my two criticisms is for a Suicide Squad of people who are coerced into doing something, they all seem fine to be there. They all seem very much like, yeah, I'm all right. They're like, if you give us bad information, like they're all already a team, and I like them not being a team. I like in the comic books, like Deadshot is really the only mainstay who kind of never dies or whatever.
Right. He's
Whatever.
kind of the lead guy because he's also got other stuff to do
Him
with
and
Batman.
Rick Flag or whatever. He's
Right.
kind of reached a point to where, yes, I'm part of the Suicide Squad. No, I don't want to do it. But I've been here long enough that I'm invested in keeping this going so I can eventually get out.
I'm the
rest
soldier of
them,
fortune.
The rest of them should kind of be fucking shit heels who...
Which we're not shown too much in
Yeah.
that. Like, I feel like a lot of the editing in that is deceptive.
I agree. I don't know if it's deceptive, but I think, like I said, it's like...
We don't want to
The
give away
movie-
too much.
If the movie explains it in a certain way, I'll be like, I don't care anymore.
Right, because it didn't even tell what the story is. Which, I mean, from what I've been told or what I've seen, it's essentially just kind of like It's kind of like Commando. It's just
Until
sort of,
Starro shows up at the end.
until Starro shows up at
Which
the
is
end.
my
which is
second
kinda
thing
great.
that I was like, I don't know how I feel about the Suicide Squad fighting a giant world-ending monster. Feels too big, like, because it feels like that was a complaint that a lot of people had with the last one, which is they don't need to fight some end of the world thing.
I felt like
It's
it's
the
stakes.
Justice League's first ever
Literally.
villain.
So I was like, it feels like this should be like a behind, like a weird thing on the background of some screen, like Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang are talking, and you see the Justice League fighting Starro on a TV, like, and you don't see Henry Cavill's face or anything. Like, it'll just be like, the Justice League is still around doing shit.
A blue zoom or something like that. Just go across the screen.
Well, that's like I've heard people say, like, for the original Ayer film, they should have brought someone in the not Batman, which they did, but like, bring in someone who's a little more like B tier, like Hawkman or something like that, to be like the person that they have to rescue at the end.
Could be cool.
But that didn't happen.
Adam was there in the now we know he's there. I guess we didn't know he was there at the time though.
Oh, you mean the Atom?
Yeah, the Atom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that. I think ultimately it looks cool. I was really like taken aback and kind of turned off by King Shark just eating a man.
I'm all
because
in on it.
I know you are, but like I was like, he's just sitting there on his phone and he just ends his life.
Yeah.
Horribly.
What was that silly show like back in the day? Like it was a kids show. It was a cartoon, and I can't remember what
You
it was
think
called.
of Jabberjaw?
No, it was like
It's a bunch of sharks.
it was like a bunch of it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but with sharks. I can't.
Street Sharks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
It's like that right there.
Right
Like,
now,
that's
I'm
what he looked like
thinking
to me.
It is jawsome.
Yeah.
Um,
I like Stallone
I'm a little disappointed.
Is that who's
it's
playing Shark
Stallone.
Boy?
because you said you wanted it to be.
I wanted it to be Steve Agee.
Yes.
So Steve Agee's doing the voice, he's doing the body for him, but he's also that guy on the console, the guy who's drinking the soda and like spitting up when that happens. That's also Steve Agee.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Which is weird. You'd think they would just get a stunt guy to just do the King Shark stuff and then just overdub it.
I guess they're having just a good time doing it. But
Yeah.
Stallone's in.
He was in the last Guardians movie, so
Yeah, he was in the last Guardians movie, which means Stallone's getting paychecks on both ends of the publishing industry.
Yeah. I don't like that
figured
he's.
it out.
I don't like that he's kind of an
So is
idiot.
Idris Elba
Yeah.
at this point.
That's true too.
I don't like that he's kind of an idiot.
Me neither. I thought he'd be a little more like
Like that-
talky and erudite.
You remember that trailer for the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, the video game?
Yes.
And he's like, it's the Superman, the mighty, mighty Superman. He's kind of this Drax state the obvious kind of guy.
Yeah,
Here
he's
he's just kind of a moron.
Yeah, I kind of want more of that. Like, I like that King Shark's kind of getting his day, as everyone's like, oh, I like King Shark.
I will.
That's my other problem with the movie, like, coming out in general, is I'm not as invested in these characters because I don't know these characters as well.
Yeah.
That's just and
some of them are by design nobodies that you have no idea
Yeah,
who they are
right,
and will be
like-
killed very quickly.
sure.
Yeah, there's, I mean, the Javelin and like a bunch of other people. Like the fact that they're pushing, and I can't remember the actor's name who's playing him for Polka Dot Man.
I know David Dastmalchian.
Dastmalchian, yeah.
whatever. He's
And-
all right. I like the fact that he's like about to cry when he's like, God, I hope we die or
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
I'm gonna have fun with that character.
are you worried that they're gonna keep the bigger like Idris Elba's in this movie, and it doesn't look like he's a guy that is easy to kill. He looks like a real hard ass.
That's what I was about.
Are you
to
worried
say.
they're just gonna kill off the people? That, of course, they're gonna kill him off, and then like at the end, we're left because they're doing a Peacemaker show on HBO Max with James Gunn. So is it gonna be John Cena, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Idris Elba? Are the ones we expect to be alive who think you are gonna be alive at the end?
That's what I'm like. That's
kinda
my
worried
first initial
at that
thought of
as
it.
well.
Yeah.
If I'm casting lots and like on like an opposite.
I saw one clip of Nathan Fillion, which makes me think he goes
no,
real
Nathan
quick.
Fillion and Pete Davidson are not going far in this,
Which is unfortunate because I really like Nathan Fillion.
I love Nathan Fillion.
I do too.
But yeah, no, he's not going
is he
far.
He plays, it could be a made-up character, or it could be Arm Fall-Off Man, who is another guy from the DC, like the D list of the DC Pantheon.
And see,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your
But yeah,
like your Matter Eater lad.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that Bloodsport is supposed to be in jail for trying to assassinate Superman. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Kind of ties into the other movies a little bit.
Because he has a kryptonite bullet and he tries to do it and they're like, whoa, okay, you mean business, buddy. Which I hope we get to kind of see little moments of these characters, like kind of like this Ocean's 11, like slight little flashbacks to their infamy that led them.
Yeah, I kind of liked that about the last movie. Like we see Captain Boomerang get busted by the Flash or
I
whatever.
was gonna say the Flash cameo in that movie.
And also like the whole thing is that, they're at what's the prison?
Blackgate.
Not Blackgate.
Belle Rev.
Belle Reve. Yeah,
Yep.
they're at Belle Reve,
Was
and
Belle Reve a prison or an asylum essentially?
I don't know.
it's a prison. I think this is like a supermax, like swamp prison. And there, it's like got from what I've read, like some of the quotes about it, it's like they're gonna make it up this thing where it's like it's got the highest mortality rate of any prison. So like, it's amazing these guys are alive to begin with, and they're just like, yeah, of course I want to get out of this shithole. We'll see how it plays out, because essentially they're going to fight some like tin pot dictator in the in the general like Nicaragua style world, the Central American world, and there's going to be some twists and turns, like that scene where they're talking to Capaldi as the thinker. I'm thinking that he's going to already be there, like they've already sent like a B team. We'll see how it plays out. It's hard to tell.
All in all, it looks real good.
It's my kind of tone. It's what I wanted from the first movie, honestly. Like I wanted that movie to take the piss a little more. I wanted it to be a little lighter, and I was like,
well, if anything, they tried to make it lighter with a bunch of reshoots, and
I feel like
the
that's
original was supposed to be like David Ayer says, like a dark drama. Apparently,
yeah. And I
remember the first
need
trailers for it, like almost being like creepy.
Yeah, the first trailer is very like it's very serious or whatever.
Yeah,
I am. Sad.
That's what I was excited about, and that's what disappointed me like the most about seeing this, and like knowing that we're not going to get that ever.
It's a lot of jokes and irreverence, but I think I can live with that if it pulls it off well. Aquaman is a movie that's very fun and quite light. And
I loved Aquaman.
Yeah, so I'm down for that.
And also, like,
I am
again,
sad
it's the
that
editing of it. Like, they could be putting all the comedy first to get people there, and then when you get there, it's going to be not dark, but it's going to be grisly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want James Gunn is a man that comes from trauma. Like, he comes from disgusting special effects
Slither
and everything.
or whatever.
Yeah, I want to see some heads exploding. I want to see some
Shark
squibs.
Boy tearing some people in half, or Shark King.
King Shark's ripping
King Shark,
people
yeah.
apart. Like,
See how little I know about these heroes from this film?
I am sad that we're not going to get more El Diablo, because he was the guy from that movie that I was like, that guy, I need more of him.
yeah.
He's the one I think I know a lot of people disagree. I think in the first Suicide Squad movie, a movie which I think is better as a music video than an actual movie,
Man,
I think he's great in it. And when I say great, I mean like he's awesome. And I think he's better than Jared Leto and Will Smith and Margot Robbie. He has a great character arc.
Will Smith
and then he
was just
turns
Will
into a
Smith.
giant fiery Aztec demon and fights Incubus. And I was like, that's so metal. If I don't get more of this character, I'm going to be very upset. And apparently, Jay Hernandez, who played him, said, like, I was going to come back for the sequel when Gavin O'Connor was doing it, and then they wrote me out. And I was like,
Yeah.
God damn it.
That's a real, yeah, I wouldn't mind if they brought him back in some of the continuing, like, DC stuff. Like, it's like, okay, you're still around.
Yeah, because apparently David Ayer said that was a Jeff Johns rewrite. He wrote that El Diablo should die. And I was like, that's so short-sighted. He's such a cool character.
So is this is the first Suicide Squad still continuity? Is it still canon at this point
Yes.
with Birds of Prey and everything like that?
Yeah.
Because I didn't
It's
watch
still-
Birds of Prey. Michelle watched it, my wife, but I didn't watch Birds of Prey because I heard that it was just so.
okay.
I didn't give it a chance.
I liked Birds of Prey quite a lot.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I like Margot Robbie, but I feel like it was just an excuse to give her another movie and let her.
Which, hey,
Harley
I mean,
Quinn
I'm
come
all
out.
fine with that.
That was
Like,
a criticism we had, was like, it's really just Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey are kind of just there in the background.
Yeah,
somewhere.
that is.
Well, I mean, it is in the subtitle of the movie that I think they ended
Which
up
I think
killing at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like the big long, the emancipation of Harley Quinn or whatever.
Yeah,
So.
it's more her movie than the Birds of Prey, which is someone who does like the Birds of Prey. I'm like, that kind of stings a little bit, but I remember I said it's kind of offensiveless and safe is what I felt. And for a movie about Harley Quinn like emancipating herself, I don't feel like she's any different at the end of it.
Okay.
I don't feel like she's reached a new character arc.
But you also-
it's a lot of fun, and there's
Leto's
some cool
Joker-
John Wick action sequences.
Leto's Joker is done at that point in that movie, though, right?
He's technically in it.
He's technically in it and is a presence felt, but it's not Jared Leto.
He has
Yeah,
no-
I knew that much,
it's
but
a
I
guy-
had
it's
seen
a punk musician dressed up as him.
when I googled the new Suicide Squad, like the cast and everything like that. One of the first things that popped up was Leto, so I wasn't sure if he was actually going to be reprising that role in it or not. But
Ooh, in this?
yeah, but that was on Google, and you know how they could have just been
Yeah.
throwing the old casting from the original in there as
Yeah.
well. So
I mean, you never
I
know.
don't
Like
think he's in
something.
it.
I don't think he's in. I don't think they're going to do that.
I don't think they're going to let him continue.
There's a huge
Joker at any
cast. I
point.
feel like asking James Gunn to throw another surprise in there is like, that's asking a lot.
And I wonder, but you know, like they kept the Sly Stallone thing pretty quiet all the way up until this point, and with the success of the Snyder Cut involving that scene with Leto, and we'll get to it because that's no shocker. It was in one of the trailers.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't think it's necessary. I feel like this is a completely side movie. It's completely removed from everything else.
It would feel weird if he was in it, given what they're
It would feel
doing.
unnecessary.
Like I said,
Like
that
he
was
shows
just a
up
quick-
in South America.
That was
You're
just
like,
a
what?
quick Google search that showed him being in the cast, but that was also, before it was the day the trailer came out, so it was probably still pulling cast from both Suicide Squad movies
So
together.
we have 2 yeses and an I don't care.
I think they'll keep Bloodsport. I think they'll want to do that with Idris Elba since they can't have
They wrote him because Will Smith couldn't come
Will
back
Smith couldn't
for
make it
Deadshot
back,
because
so
of scheduling things.
Because they were just going to make him Deadshot, and they decided, no, we can use a different character that literally almost just sounds like you took the names Deadshot, Bloodsport. He's just playing Deadshot, essentially.
But he seems to be a lot less. He seems to be a little more funny
Yeah.
and light.
So I think he's going to stick around. Obviously, he's not going to kill off Harley Quinn.
Well, I mean, and since he's not busy in the MCU anymore, he's got plenty of free time to do other projects.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I think it would be great if they killed Harley. And I'm gonna make a devil's advocate here. I can see your lip like curling up, like what?
No, I know. No, at the same time, I'm like, yeah, that would be interesting, but it would also
Upset
be
a lot of Hot Topic girls. Yes.
No,
yes,
it would. It would be a financial disaster to do that because
But I feel like
they can
Harley-
bankroll a lot. They're bankrolling a lot on Margot Robbie's performance. They don't want to let that go.
Yeah, but I feel like Harley Quinn as a character can only go so many places and do so much.
if you
I
don't,
think they've
if you don't
done-
lose her in this movie, you'll lose her in Flashpoint. I bet.
Yeah, because I feel like at some point, the thing I like about Harley is the thing that a lot of people I feel like get wrong is that she's not supposed to be like a strong, independent woman. She actually is kind of a codependent follower,
Right,
Who
and
latches on to people.
but that's what Birds of Prey kind of was about, that emancipation a little bit. And I don't want to break all down into that, but also like something mentioned in this Justice League movie would kind of refutes anything that would have happened to her in this coming movie.
Yeah.
Because of
You're right.
a line that's mentioned.
So I would like to see, like, I don't know what a Harley Quinn movie could be after this. I feel like her being on a Suicide Squad is kind of the best place to put her, as opposed to doing like, let's do a solo movie. I'm like, well, what's that going to be? It's like Birds of Prey again, but without the Birds of Prey.
Well, the
kind of thing.
Gambit will become August, where we will be as a movie watching society, in terms of going to the theaters and everything. And if the movie
It's
succeeds,
coming out soon.
August.
Yeah.
So
it's-
not too long.
Is it getting an HBO Max release simultaneously?
I think so.
I
don't think
think
that's-
right now they're hedging on just theatrical because
Really?
the hope is that theaters will be back into
Because I thought
opening.
that they weren't definitely stopping that until the first of the year, but I could be wrong. I didn't
I don't
read
know.
that. deep into it.
It's still too early to say because I don't even think they list. Well, they had to list it as an R because it had that nice red restricted.
Oh, yeah, the
preview
red band
thing on
trailer.
the red band.
Let's talk
Yeah,
about
let's-
something that another movie I'm very excited for. Maybe I imagine Blake will be more excited for this than he will for Suicide Squad. Black Adam cast Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate.
Yep.
Which I'm like, hell yes, it's great casting. I love it. Which means now we have our Justice Society is cast. Aldous Hodge will be Hawkman. Noah Centineo will be Atom Smasher. A lady I can't remember will be Cyclone. And Pierce Brosnan will be Dr.
Brosno.
Fate, and he will be playing Kent Nelson's Dr. Fate, which is cool. And The Rock will be Black Adam. So,
we
quick
gonna get-
casting thoughts. I remember I sent you the picture of the Boss Logic poster. It's amazing how he was cast like 6 hours ago, and
And
Boss Logic makes an amazing fan art of him, and I was like, that's so good. I want to see it.
I'm not sold on him as Dr. Fate yet, but I'm also not like I like Dr. Fate. I know a little bit, and I've watched enough stuff and played enough video games that had him as a playable character that I know a little bit of his lore and all that stuff. But I've never been a huge Brosnan fan, so I don't know how I feel about it. So.
Yeah.
I don't really know anything about many of these characters.
Okay, I'll give you the skinny on
so-
Dr. Fate. Dr.
I mean, I
Fate-
know about Dr. Fate, but I think it's only like tangentially, only like
He'll show up in a
related
Justice
to the
League Dark
Sandman.
thing, yeah.
I think he shows up in the Sandman
Yes, he
books.
does.
He's Justice Society. That's all Justice Society of him.
And he shows up in Justice League Dark every once in a while. Like, he's a very mystical, magical character. Dr. Fate is less a person than a mantle that's passed down. There's been multiple Dr. Fates.
Right.
It's sort of whoever, because what gives you the power is the helmet. The helmet of Nabu the Wise. You put it on, and if you have magical ability, it enhances that.
It enhances.
essentially.
correct me
It's
if I'm
like it gives you like a plus this in
Plus
art-
5
plus
THAC-O.
5 on
I've always-
intelligence and charisma.
Yeah.
And not just because he has the doctor in his name, but I've always felt he was kind of comparable to Doctor Strange in a certain aspect.
Well, Doctor Strange is literally like the Marvel ripoff.
That's
of
what
him.
I thought. So I mean, I don't know
But,
who I only know that Deadshot's Deadpool and Deathstroke are really rip-offs of each other.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we could go down the list, like the Nova Corps was blocking the
we don't
Lantern
have
Corps.
to.
But
We don't have
I
to.
mean, I feel like it's a great pick because Kent Nelson is supposed to be like this. Like Pierce Brosnan has like old archaeologist vibes, and I feel like they can match some of that. I just think it's cool, and I think it's great. We're gonna get a character that has the potential to be really powerful, but it also does bring up: is this in the main continuity? Because where was the Justice Society during Man of Steel and stuff, or is it set in modern day?
Well, and the other thing that I'm wondering too, and this is like, I know we've got Shazam 2 coming at some point.
Yeah.
Like I've seen something about that. It's like one of the last movies on the slate that I've seen.
Fury of the Gods, it's called.
So my thing, and obviously we're gonna get Black Adam and Shazam because they're but what is the big overarching goal with DCEU at this point? Because there's not a big team up.
Do
story.
tell.
No, that's my goal. That's what I want to know. Like, what is the big story?
If you
what
were
are
to
we
ask,
shooting towards?
if you were to ask Walter Hamada in person, like
He couldn't tell you.
Are we ever gonna have another like Justice League team up? He'd be like, "What's that over there?" And he would like fall out of a window.
He would see, that's my problem. It's like,
he would do the Michael Cera jumping out the window.
we all kind of knew.
Scott just left.
I mean,
And I'm not trying to draw comparisons to DC. I mean to the MCU, but you kind of always knew you were building towards Thanos the whole time when they've completely wiped everything that was supposed to be built towards.
they're kind of
you know,
focusing
you get
on
my
the
point.
individual franchises now, which I think is a big mistake to not have, because eventually we're gonna get to like Aquaman 3 and be like, great. What about that the Justice League Dark Side sequel? That happening? No? Feels like a missed opportunity. Like it's gonna get to that point.
I guess we're
at
gonna
some
get to
point.
that in a minute, but
Yeah, I mean, it feels short-sighted, and I would say like if the whole purpose of having a multiverse is that you can keep the doors open, I would to come back to something we'll talk more about later. Why would you not keep all of those doors open? But
that goes on to further what I was actually about to say. It's like with there not being an ultimate end game, like I am a DC fan through and through, comic book wise. I have never opened a Marvel comic in my entire life. I am a DC comic fan.
there's some good ones. You should open some. There's some good ones in there.
And I'm sure there are, but I'm invested in DC Comics.
Yeah.
I am not invested in the universe, and I was at one point. I don't have anything to like yearn towards at this point because the movies are bleh.
Yeah, sometime after Aquaman, I was like, I'm less interested now.
Yep.
And it's because, dare I say, Zack Snyder stepped away, and now there isn't like this thing where like, and not that he was the Kevin Feige of the universe,
But he kinda was.
He kind of helped move everyone in the same direction. Like he helped like
him and Nolan from the beginning, because even though Nolan, I would say that Man of Steel is not in the universe that his Batman is.
No.
He produced it.
Yes,
and
and he wrote the
and he
story
wrote the
credit as
story.
well.
So from those origins, we get this, and as like Doc Brown said in Back to the Future 2, we've skewed off into this tangent.
Yeah.
With all these multiverse.
Well, like he helped produce
things.
he helped produce Suicide Squad. He's a producer on that. He literally has a story credit and a producing credit on Zack Snyder, not Christopher Nolan. But he has a producer credit and a story credit on that first Wonder Woman, and which is why
That was still part of the before the major course correct happened.
Yeah, that's
though.
my
So, I
point. Is
mean,
that like those first 5-6 DC films,
We
feel
had
very
some-
much in his story.
Yeah, and
even that Aquaman movie, which happened after Justice League, he's still a producer
still part
on
of
it,
it.
and it still feels like
it-
that was the next step of Aquaman.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm saying, and that's why I'm not invested in any of these movies that are coming out. And like not to say that I could care less, because I do care. I just don't see an overarching universe with the whole thing, so I'm not as in like, oh, awesome, as I would be if there was like this bigger picture. There was this big picture painted at first, and then it was like, oh, what was that? We're gonna forget about.
And I feel like we're probably gonna end up
Yeah.
talking about that
Yeah.
more
So-
when we
but
get
anyway,
to the end of
let's-
the whole thing.
let's-
Because like I said, Snyder's a producer on the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
So
Or an
what is that?
executive
Well, who knows
producer.
what that means?
I think it really that is more a formality of like he produced the first one, so he kind of helped create that version, and they're still
Right.
kind of borrowing pieces. Like you still have
You have three
Amanda
char- you have four
Waller
characters
and
that are
Jack Courtney.
returning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I think it's really more like he had his hand in it. I don't think he's giving James Gunn like notes or anything.
yeah.
But let's get into the real reason we're here today. The one I'm chomping at the bit to talk about.
Like a shark.
3 years ago, they said it would never happen, and then they said, "All right, I guess it exists," or they said it didn't exist, and then they said it'll. They said, "All right, it exists, but like if they'll never put the money in to release it," and they said, "Okay, they're gonna put the money in to release it, but it's not gonna be good." Like, okay, well now they're not gonna continue it, so like. I'm sort of sitting here just kind of fat and happy about this whole thing. Not
You
just,
and a lot of people.
yeah, and I'll be
This guy.
A lot of people.
And I'll be perfectly honest. I expected this movie to come out because if you're listening to this at this point, if you've seen some of the reviews, it's being looked at quite favorably.
Yeah.
And
Even people who are,
Quite a few people who weren't on
negative
board.
to the process are still like, this is by far a superior, complete picture.
even people that weren't necessarily like, I didn't really like Man of Steel or I didn't like BVS. Even a lot of people like them are turning around. And I was the first person to say, like, I thought this movie was going to come out and it was going to get like a 30 on Rotten Tomatoes and it was going to be kind of the same thing, a very divisive film, which it could kind of still be seen as a little divisive in some ways. But I was I was bracing myself for a bunch of like articles like, see, it's bad and this is what you get or whatever. Like
You
or
end
something
up
like
with
that.
the opposite, which is kind of the begrudging respect of the picture itself.
Yeah.
And we'll get into how
Yeah.
much this movie has now become an independent entity from the movement that created it.
Yeah. I will be the
But we'll talk about this movie.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie. I will be the first to say I don't know why. Cause I imagine Blake will agree with this. I don't know why the DC characters appeal to me so much. Everyone has their mythology. Some people have Marvel. Some people have Doctor Who. You have Star Wars. You're a big Star Wars fan. The DC characters have always been like home to me. And every other place I would visit, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Star Wars, it was like a vacation. But DC was always home to me.
It's kind of
And-
like that thing that's going around where people talking about like their comfort characters or their
Yes.
comfort creations and things. And I'm like, that's a really good way of putting it. Like you said, Star Wars for me is kind of that. As I've opined before about it, the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise is kind of that for me. Like these places where I'm like, I know this world, it feels right to me. And much like you guys, DC's that way too. I'm not big into the Marvel. I think the closest thing into Marvel's thing
Like Spider-Man stuff.
Spider-Man, X-Men. That would be it. But like, I didn't really care about Iron Man or Captain America or any of that until they were on the big screen.
And I
But
remember
I
going
will say
to
my
see-
Batman love didn't really start until The Dark Knight. And then I started reading comics. I didn't grow up on comics.
Okay, so I really didn't start reading comics until actually it was about the time me and Michelle got married. So I mean, it's like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
First comic I ever read.
Edit
was
that
three-
and make sure
was
that
three-
says 6 years ago because she listens
I'll
to this.
edit it. Michelle, he doesn't love you. I'll edit it. I started first comic book I ever read was 300, ironically, because I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that's
So
dope.
I started reading. I started collecting comics just because I wanted to go collect the whole Nightfall series, and that's what got me into it.
With Azrael,
Yeah,
so
okay.
90s.
No, it
so
is totally,
extreme.
totally. But I had this box of comics that my great grandmother had bought. You know, it was all 90s stuff, so nothing's really got any monetary value or anything like that. There was like 4 issues of Nightfall and Night Quest and the 2 series that followed it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to collect this because I know that's the one where Bane breaks the bat, and that's kind of some inspiration for the Nolan verse, which gave,
Yeah.
So that's where I come from.
I
But
can give you some great extreme 90s comics. Hair and like crazy like dynamic characters. There's a series called Law called Living Assault Weapons from DC and from the 90s. It went for like 10 issues and they canceled it because no one was reading it. But it was like extreme Justice League. Everything was dialed up. My point is it was fucking crazy.
But anyways, I kind of migrated into Justice League and like all that stuff after that. So I don't know why to relate to those characters more than anything else, but like I'm kind of in the same deal. They're home for me. They're the characters that I've gravitated towards. I didn't care about Iron Man, although I thought it was a cool movie. I didn't care about. Nobody cared about the Hulk movies, apparently.
Not even Universal, but they won't give them back to Marvel.
Right? It's gone so far enough that people have gone back to the Ang Lee movie and said, was that secretly a masterpiece?
It's all right.
There's some people who really like that movie.
It's a little sad.
I miss Eric Bana.
I just remember a lot of
Me
running.
too. What's he
Yeah.
doing now?
I don't know,
He was
man.
in that Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie for like 5 seconds.
Speaking of, I was gonna say I haven't seen the trailer yet, but they just announced Guy Ritchie's new movie. It's Jason Statham pointing a gun, so it's a Guy Ritchie movie, but also it's Josh Hartnett. And I'm like,
God, he hasn't been around.
Ooh,
for
Josh
anything.
Hartnett. He hasn't been around since Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, kicks ass.
Great show. I've seen the first 2 seasons.
Okay, that's about all you need to see. Kicks
Anyway,
ass.
no more tangents. We're talking about Snyder Cut, Matt. Trying to distract me.
Like the Snyder Cut hasn't been tangented from everything anyway.
My point is, the DC characters meant a whole lot to me, and particularly somewhere along the way, that went from I love the DC characters to I love Zack's interpretation of the DC characters, because for the longest time, an interconnected DC universe was a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I mean, Green Lantern was supposed to start one. I know you kind of like that movie. I
No, I don't like that movie, but I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So.
same thing. But somewhere along the way, the Zack's version of the DC characters became a rallying cry for a lot of people, I feel like, because if you liked Man of Steel, you knew that was your best hope for getting a Man of Steel 2 or a Batman and then a Justice League of some sort. So somewhere along the way, my love for DC characters morphed into an appreciation for Zack Snyder and his movies. I'd always liked them. I'd always seen 300 and Watchmen and Dawn of the Dead and be like, these are really cool. This guy should do like a superhero movie or something. And like somewhere along the way, I latched on to his version of the DC characters, and I think his approach to the characters were always very much what I felt in the comics, which is these aren't just superheroes. They're gods. They're mythological gods in a world of people.
You
And
could
they're-
probably draw like little lines from everything. Like I just had the thought the other day, and I was like thinking about it. Like, oh, you can draw clear lines to the Greek gods, you know, with
Yes,
a lot,
for a lot of them, yeah,
But I
absolutely.
was like, Batman's kind of Hephaestus. Like he builds things.
No,
like
Cyborg is Hephaestus now. Or Green Lantern, because he literally makes things.
That's
But,
true.
Batman would be like Hades or something.
Yeah.
He lives in a dark river of death, and he has to like guard it against people, essentially. Hades is not always a bad character.
No, he's not a bad guy. He had a dog called Spot.
Yeah.
Hades is a good fellow.
But and this isn't even something unique to Snyder. Grant Morrison's whole 1999-ish Justice League run was all like, these are gods.
Yeah.
I'm letting you know
Batman,
they're gods
I love
right now.
that Grant Morrison. He loves metaphysics. Like he's like that's. Yeah, because I like his approach to this as well.
He even did a story called DC 1 Million, which takes place like 200,000 years in the future with a future Justice League. That's the one thing that DC does all the time is like future versions or alternate versions of characters. And even then, they're still looked at like with the same iconography. So I think a lot of people latched onto that as the difference. And when I heard about this movie that was going to bring together the Justice League for the first time, and I was like, that's great. We're going to get this pantheon of gods. And then
Literally
you watch the 2017 version. It felt like such a betrayal of the tone that we were trying
It
so hard
certainly
to build
didn't
up.
feel like gods, and it certainly didn't feel like, because the Justice League, if we pull it back, I think also, like, at least here in the United States, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Justice League have more cultural prowess than Marvel. Or at least the Avengers.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's just general. Like I think, you know, we've been more privy to it. Like, Marvel characters didn't get movies until, Spider-Man? I mean, technically Captain America had that 90s one, but we're not going to get in the Corman stuff right
They
there.
didn't get TV shows either, and there was
No.
like,
Yeah.
not really, because there was Batman TV shows, Superman TV
Wonder
shows,
Woman.
Wonder Woman TV shows.
Yeah,
Justice
the
League
Super
TV show.
Friends, like,
Literally Justice League TV shows,
Yeah.
really good ones.
really got Justice League Unlimited rules the school.
I just watched the one where Wonder Woman was turned into a pig, and Batman has to find her, and then the only way he can get Cersei to turn her back from being a pig is to do a song and dance number. It's really funny.
Does that Justice League Unlimited?
Yes.
That still would be great,
And
Ed.
Kevin Conroy sings like what's the word? The famous singer. What's his name?
Like a Frank Sinatra
Yes.
sort of thing, like a
he sings
doo-wop
like
song?
a Sinatra type song, and then the ladies in the crowd, including Cersei, are like, "Oh, it's so beautiful," and then she turns her back into Wonder Woman. And
You know
Wonder
what?
Woman-
I bet
yeah.
that kicks all the ass,
It's so fun.
considering it's that
fun.
universe.
Yeah, it's very fun.
But I think that it has more cultural cachet. Like, we make references to Batman, Justice League, and things like that. We know what that is. And then when Marvel came in and, you know, landed it, you know, whether you care about the quality or not, it still landed effectively and has kind of turned the tides a little bit in the...
Iron Man is now on the same pop culture.
In Thanos' little balance thing, it's not balanced,
Yeah.
you know, like... And
Well, Iron Man and Captain America have reached similar pop culture status to
As
like any Justice League character would have,
Right.
if not more so. So
which is a sea change from what it was in the 90s. You
Yeah.
know, when we were
They were
growing up.
B-list characters originally anyways. Iron Man wasn't like a big prominent character
Yeah.
anyway, so...
but everyone can remember like the 7 of the Justice League. You could name 5 out of 7 of them easily.
Yeah,
Like,
you
oh,
definitely
Batman, Wonder
could name
Woman.
3 of them.
Yeah. So like when I heard that this movie was gonna come out, I had this thing is like, is it something? Is it weird to me? Is it something that I care about but other people just don't understand? Is it a secret? Is it me secretly loving a bad movie? The movie came out. I finally watched it, and I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I gotta say, pretty love this movie. It's pretty great. So that's my first initial reaction / expectations. Matt, do you want to give yours real quick?
Sure, I'll go ahead and give my quick summation before we get into the nitty gritty on the whole deal. So
This is going to be full spoilers, by the way. If you haven't watched it, why are you here?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
it's it's kind of one of these things where it was so fun to watch the movie reveal the new things that it had to give, to have the little character moments, the expansion of things, the pacing. For as everyone's talking about, it's epic, length of 4 hours and some change. It still paces very well, and it still goes through itself very well. And I mean, I think I was surprised also when I go back to this thing where I think about the bones of the story. Because the bones of this story are really not different from the original film. No, because that is still Zack Snyder's original script.
But I would point out, every time I hear someone say, it's just the same movie, I go, no, it's the same story.
Yeah, it's the same story. It's not the same movie.
There's a million things. If I gave 15 different editors the same piece of footage and said, I want you to edit this, color grade it, pick your music for it, and decide the pace of this scene, are those the same scenes? No. So it's the same story.
It's the ship of Theseus with this. It's the ship of Theseus with this. Is it the same movie? But it is
the same story.
It's the same story, but it's how you. Again, it's like.
Well, it's part of the same story.
It's part of the same story. It's like you get the bones of a creature, and then you're in a museum and you build the mold of what the creature looks like. That creature, the bones are still there, but this creature is a completely different thing. Mm-hmm. And I, of course, liked it. Of course, I liked it. I mean, it's.
If you didn't like it, I'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to really enjoy.
Wish one of us was a naysayer on it. Just
There's plenty naysayers out there already.
I know.
I got my nays to say about other things, but not this movie. It feels complete. Everything feels earned.
That's a word I kept coming back to.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I feel like surprisingly were missing that the original had that I thought was the point, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. But overall, I'm like, yeah, of course, this is. I may come back to this movie again sometime. It'd be good to watch with people.
Could be good to watch as a miniseries.
Yeah, and so I don't see myself coming back to it anytime soon because I don't have as much of the investment. But it is the superior product. It feels worthy of itself, and its strength comes from a lot of those things that were missing.
And I felt as I was watching the movie, there's a lot of moments where I can't divorce what I'm seeing on the screen from what actually happened to this movie and to its director. Mm-hmm. To quote, I'm not broken and I'm not alone. And I was like, is he talking directly to us? Is he and it can't be because it's 3 years old. It's a 3-year-old movie,
right,
or whatever. But I felt a little bit of that. Blake, what were your initial expectations and then feelings about the movie when it finally finished for the first time?
I went into it knowing pretty much what the movie was going to be because like me,
you've read every article and seen everything.
a lot.
It for yourself.
A lot, but I just remember the big thing was after the 2017 movie came out and watching it, and then I always listened to Fat Man Beyond or Fat Man on Batman and all that stuff like that. And I listened to Kevin Smith talking with the crowd about it, and he basically breaks down the synopsis of what the test screenings for the Justice League Snyder Cut were.
Yeah.
And we got that exact movie if you haven't listened to that podcast, which I couldn't find
one
again.
thing that's not in there.
Yeah, one thing. And that was the movie I wanted to see the whole time. So I went into it with the expectations of what I was going to get, and I got that, and I loved it. Every second of it.
Yeah.
Well, almost every second of it. But yeah, people are going to gripe. Zack Snyder haters are going to continue to hate, but I thought the movie was great.
I've seen quite a few people who've been like Dan Murrell from Screen Junkies was not a big fan of BVS or Man of Steel, but he said with this movie, and he goes, I'm a fan of this movie. He was like, I want to watch it again. I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out. I think this is awesome.
It's the payoff. That's the thing, is this movie is the payoff. If you didn't like Batman vs. Superman, you didn't realize it was part 2.
of five things.
When is the climax? The second part of the movie.
Yeah.
And also, like you talking about all the people who had seen the original screen cuts,
The test-
Kevin
the
Smith
test
test
showings
screening,
and stuff.
and that was like, oh, that's the room where it happened. Are we ever gonna be in the room where it happened? And
You heard whisperings of, oh, there was a dark side in the movie. There was supposed to be Green Lantern
Well, he
cameos.
was
There was gonna
cast
be
in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, you knew he was supposed to be
Yeah,
there.
the actor couldn't say anything, and he was like, he woke up one day with 5,000 more Twitter followers, and he was like, and they were all asking, "Did you play Darkseid?" And he immediately went to Warner Brothers and was like, "I didn't say anything to anybody."
Or at Tom Holland.
And God bless him, because he's been a champion for this too. Probably because he knows if he gets a sequel, he'll get to do a lot more in the next two movies.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it seems like all the actors that were part of this movie were under contract to where they couldn't say they wanted this to happen.
Yeah.
Jason
Jason Momoa was for the longest time was the guy who was like, in interviews, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I saw that. I saw it a few days ago with Zach. I gave him a camera for his birthday, and he showed it to me. Yeah, it's pretty cool." And stuff like, and everyone was like,
Which
"No,
is so
no,
Jason
he's
Momoa.
lying for more work. Like, oh, because he just got his Aquaman sequel, he needs more work. Like, he already has.
It's
his
Jason
big-
Momoa.
and
Don't-
Dune, he's
don't
doing
worry
Dune
about
now.
Jason
Like,
Momoa.
It just feels like those guys, like watching the interviews with every one of the actors when they're asked about it, were all a part of that movie. That's the movie that they made and they wanted anyways. They didn't like what happened. And they were under contract to not say, we don't like the movie. We had to.
Yeah,
had
what are
to
you gonna do? Go to
promote.
Comic-Con in the middle of a few months before Justice League hits theaters and be like, "I don't like this movie, and you shouldn't go see it."
It
Like,
would be a disaster.
people have always been like, "Why did Ray Fisher support it so hard?" Like, because he's doing his job.
Yeah.
He's promoting a work.
Because he
that
didn't know,
had to
he
make
didn't know
money
there
off
was
the
going to
movie.
be this movement to make this thing come true, that people wanted to see this. And I think that was one of the things that kind of turned me away from being, thumbing my nose up at it, was like hearing from the actors, from Fisher, from Affleck, from Godot. Everybody was just like,
Henry Cavill.
no, we all liked working on it. And it's like, you don't hear that uniformity too much.
And now you're hearing that they all loved working with Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope for the future, maybe.
Yeah. So I think it's safe that we were all positive coming out of the movie. Do we want to dive into the things that we liked about it? Actually, you know what? Let's do all of our negatives up front,
Okay.
because I have a couple that I'll get to.
And by negatives, we mean in the film.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing outside of the celluloid.
yeah.
I'll say one
In
of
the
the
films,
things.
and I'll actually even break it up into, like, there's negatives I think are good points that I've heard from people, and there's negatives I'm like, that's a dumb criticism that doesn't matter or whatever.
There was one thing I have to bring up that I thought was strange, because this is something that you and I talked about when looking at the original, with the original one that was 2017's, and something I really liked about it that I thought would be more of this movie, and it felt like less, is that I liked in the original, and it was the original idea, that Cyborg is kind of the main character, that we're all kind of coming from his point of view. We still get that in this, but he doesn't feel as much as the main character in this one. Like, in fact, I think Batman feels like more of the main character in this one.
I think Cyborg is just supposed to be the character that we empathize with the hardest, but I always felt watching the movie that it's Batman's mea culpa.
Yeah, that's
There's
something.
a lot of lines where Ben Affleck really stresses the point of, like, I have to bring us together.
Right, and that is
Last
more.
movie, I didn't do a lot of that.
Faith. It's
Yeah.
all about faith.
Yeah.
And these themes hit harder. I felt like I just kind of liked that about the first one, in terms of like the camera and the narrative focus felt more on like Cyborg's development of that character, like as our audience surrogate. And I think I was expecting that to be more flushed out, and I was like, okay, it doesn't disappoint me.
I'm going to make a counterpoint to this later, where I feel like Cyborg doesn't say a lot, but he says, like, a lot.
Yes.
See, and
like, when
Fisher's
with
performance
his
in
looks
this
and his
is-
performance
is
say
so much
everything.
more
See, and
dynamic.
I came away feeling probably the opposite of what you just said. I felt like this movie was Cyborg's movie more than anything else.
Yeah.
His involvement with it felt. And I guess it's also because it's so much longer, so you've got more time.
You've
for
got
these
more
characters
Aquaman
to
and more
exist.
Flash and more Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
Like,
but when you think about it, when you break down all the points, like what were all the things that, who lost the most, who gained the most, who had the most at stake, and a lot of it kind of comes back to his character.
Yeah.
And we'll get into those parts.
Well, and Zach had also said that Cyborg was the heart of the movie.
he said it for
originally.
years now.
Yeah.
So
and that's
like,
kind of what that's why I thought it would be more about him, and it is, because we get way more scenes of him, and they're all great. I think they're all really good, and they all tinge on this performance that Fisher does. It's so good.
It's so good that it's like very subtle at times, but it's one of those things where like there's a moment in the movie where you and I did where he's in the car with his mom, and he says, "You've got to stop making excuses for him. You're just as busy as he is, but you still make the time." Or he goes, she says, he really cares about you. He loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it. And he turns away, and she sees his face, and she pulls it back, and Ray Fisher is like about to cry.
Yeah,
and it's so subtly good that I was like,
so vulnerable.
Dude.
It's that scene.
That's an example of what I mean by like he doesn't say a lot. He doesn't have a lot more dialogue than maybe the first movie. There's a lot of scenes of him just sort of looking at stuff.
Right.
But it's the performance does the talking. Is sort of how I felt. And there's there's some really big themes with him that I'll touch on later.
And they cut that out of the 17 cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's all gone. That's
well, we have to know how Barry feels about brunch because that's a deep, important character moment for us.
So that's one little thing I'll say there.
I'll say
we'll go around and
for one of my negatives, the music choices didn't always land for me. I feel like
I've seen that criticism a lot, actually.
Aquaman's music choice, to go back to the theatrical cut, I think would have been better as the White Stripes song as opposed to, I don't know, whatever slow Cat Stevens song about There's a King or whatever. It felt like tonally a big
felt
tonal
more
shift.
Zack Snyder, I will say that.
I feel like the Icky Thump felt more Zack Snyder because they used that in early trailers.
Yeah.
So I was like, it makes him feel like a
I
vagabond
was actually kind of surprised
king.
that wasn't in, even though, because I remember the first trailers having that same.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's weird he took that out, but I feel like that was his choice in the beginning, and they kind of give it this mellow thing. I like the music choice. We'll talk about negatives. I'll get to the stuff I like later. But what was any negatives that you had? I know one of them is eventually going to be, are there scenes we do or don't need? And I think I can go either way on that. There are scenes that I would cut out, but I understand exactly why he left them in from a marketing standpoint and from like a heartfelt standpoint of like, this might be the only sequel or the only movie you guys ever get that continues this, so I'm giving it all to you. Like
My only big negative is like, I mean, you know, we were supposed to get the unencumbered version of Zack Snyder's movie anyways. I felt there was some fat that needed to be trimmed.
And we may not have gotten that with the reports coming out that he cast a Green Lantern and he was going to put it in the movie, and then Warner Brothers was like, no. And he was like, well, fine,
only give you so
I'll do
much.
it Martian Manhunter then. Like, because that scene apparently was supposed to be him talking to the Lanterns. It was supposed to be, they cast Trevante Rhodes from Bird Box or whatever, the movie on Netflix. He was Jon Stewart. Straight up.
Yeah.
Like, he said they confirmed that they cast him. And
They've confirmed it?
Would have preferred
Because
that.
I remember looking up every single day waiting to see if they had cast a Green Lantern for that movie.
Which sucks because that's a great casting choice.
Yeah, it is.
And I would have been like, God damn it.
No, he looks the part
we
for sure.
do get a Green Lantern in it.
We get two Green Lanterns in the movie.
Yep.
He raised the stakes from Justice League. One Green Lantern, now it's two.
But now it's like, oh yeah, it felt more. But yeah. I'm hearing that, I'm like, why not? Why not? You know?
Yeah, if you're not gonna continue this, why don't you let him put it in? Like it felt. Anyway, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
My big negative is like, I think that the only thing that hurt the movie in any aspect to me was just, it's not the length, it's just the pacing of the first half specifically is the only thing. If you didn't get into that movie, it's because of the first half. If you didn't make it to the second half of that movie, it's because the first half was kind of slow.
See, I disagree. I think not the first half, but the first two parts move really well.
See, and I feel like there was...
Like the opening of the movie enraptures me. The death of Superman and the voice going out and the music swelling up. I'm like, I'm in for all of it.
I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about up until hour 2. Like the first 30 minutes of the movie I thought was great, probably. I don't remember the exact timestamps on it all and what parts it actually was. I don't say that I dislike any of the parts. I just say that if you watched that movie and didn't make it past hour 2, I get it, because the first 2 hours were the most... Okay, I gotta turtle pace through this, and
I felt the middle two parts are where it drags.
And the first big fight is where the movie picked up for me, and that's the end of hour 2. The beginning of hour 2 is where that fight concludes,
and that's the fight under the harbor,
yes.
and the cylindrical battle sequence.
If you didn't make it to that battle there, I understand why you gave up on that movie, though. That's all I'm gonna say. That's my negative is the first part of the movie for me. And I literally sat there and watched everybody that I see that's been negative about it on like my friends list on social medias and stuff. They're like, I fell asleep during the movie. It's too damn long. Well, you didn't make it to hour 2. Yeah. And I can tell.
I almost fell asleep when I first watched it because it was so late, and I was waiting for it to just go on HBO Max. Yep. And I was like, I'm so tired. I've watched an hour. I'm going to bed. I'm going to watch this the way it deserves to be watched.
I watched it with my wife and my roommate, and we all I made it through the movie. I wasn't quitting, and this was it released on a Wednesday at midnight. I guess, right? And so 12. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I didn't start it until 10 p.m. Wednesday night. Yeah. And then I finished it. They were both asleep before hour 2 ever hit. Yeah. You know, it was late. They fell asleep.
It's a gauntlet a little bit.
It is. And that's my biggest negative if you're going to take anything away from it. If you don't if you struggled with the movie and if you're listening to this and happen to have not liked the movie, go back and start the movie
watch it in 40-minute increments by the parts.
But go back and start the movie at hour 2 and see if your opinion changes of that movie.
And that's actually something that just dawned on me that I'm like, is this movie has been successful. And it's not just only the people who have been invested in this story, in this whole thing.
It's been successful on like a mainstream
and that's kind
platform.
Of like I think right now that's the eyes I would love to look at this through that I'm unable to, is the eyes of people who have had no stake in this are like, oh, the Justice League movie that's like epic.
Did you see Leslie Jones from SNL did a live tweet of it?
Yes, I heard about
hashtag long ass movie.
Yeah,
and Zack Snyder tweeted out, and he goes, "I just wish I could have you do this for all my movies or whatever." It was good. She liked it for the most part. It was pretty cool. Anyway, funny stuff. But trying to think here, any more negatives that I had?
I've got some more negatives, but it all comes back to
I have a specific
being nitpicky and trimming fat from the movie.
a specific of the reason I'm hesitant to say I would cut this out or cut that out. When I say I would cut something out, I don't mean cut that whole scene. I mean there's a part where you see Wonder Woman pick up a stick, wrap it up, dip it in the water, light it on a torch, and then she drops into the tomb. And I'm like, just show her dropping into the tomb. We don't need to see her make the torch. There's a scene where Barry Allen opens this padlock, walks down the hallway, turns, puts this thing into the little fuse box, cranks the fuse box up, sparks up, and his house lights up. It's 10 seconds. I'm like, that's just stuff that I'm like, I don't need to see him walk down the hallway. It's a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, that could easily be very tiny cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah, I feel like there is a 3-hour 30 version of this story because it's 3 hours 50-something minutes by the time you get to the credits. So I'm like, there is 20+ minutes that you probably can get rid of. The second I'll get to this one later, but some of the slow-mo feels unnecessary.
11% of the movie is in slow motion. They've timed it out at this point.
Yeah, or 10%.
No, it's 11. I actually did the math on it it actually breaks down to 11.03 or something like that.
But I would argue
27.5 minutes of the movie is in slow-mo. There's some of that could probably be reduced a little bit, but I feel that's not one of my negatives for the movie.
No.
There are some of those sequences that probably could have been shortened a little bit.
Yeah.
But I feel that the slow-mo is needed for a lot of those sequences too.
The football sequences, every flash sequence, all that stuff I'm happy with.
For anything related to
I feel like the flash sequences could have been a little shortened, not necessarily out of slow-mo though.
There's a part where before Steppenwolf comes out of the water again, when you see Hippolyta run away from the thing and it's in slow-mo, I'm like, what is that slow motion? Little things like that. It's a bunch of little things. I'm like, but again, these are so
it's meant
minor
to be
inconsistencies. Yes.
Only slow-mo scene that I would take completely out of the movie is the entire Barry Allen Iris West scene.
See, I wouldn't take it.
I know we've already had this conversation. You would not take it out, but I feel like that did not.
So you're not saying speed it up. You're saying take the scene.
I'm saying that particular scene there did not do anything to move the plot forward.
No, but there's a difference between a scene that has to move the plot forward. There's no mentions of Steppenwolf. It doesn't tie in later. But what it does do is it lets us live with the characters more. That's what I would say is the big
like
difference.
That scene.
Yeah,
because it was one of the coolest
I think
ways
the scene is cool as hell.
Yeah.
I don't think that it needs to be in that movie in a sense of the movie, and this is something that I made a note of, that it was the movie did a really good job, because I feel that the movie was Cyborg's backstory more than anything else. It was more, we got Cyborg's backstory. We at the point that this movie came out, we originally 2017, we already had Wonder Woman movie. We've had Man of Steel. We had Batman vs Superman. We don't need Batman's origin story. We've gotten it how many times?
Yeah.
We
How many
didn't
times have we
need-
seen those pearls?
We did not need that scene or that movie again. We knew those three characters already. We got Cyborg's backstory with this movie, and then we got enough of a setup to set us up for what was supposed to be the Aquaman movie, which pretty much seems like it probably was the Aquaman movie. Like the movie left Aquaman right where.
Yeah, if anything, like people say, like point to that movie as like that's an example of the course correction. I don't think so.
I don't either.
James Wan was picked in 2014 to do.
I feel like that movie was
that
still
was-
fairly close to what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And as a way to set up those characters to eventually pay off into Aquaman.
And we also got enough stuff within the movie to set up Flash, even though it's a little out of order from his comic book continuity, but that's irrelevant to the point.
And there will be a big change coming up because one thing is coming up. They're replacing Billy Crudup with Ron Livingston.
Which I'm sad about.
Yeah, I like Billy Crudup, but I also love Ron Livingston. That's not a bad choice, but Billy.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was a Snyder thing because he's a Snyder guy.
Well, they've delayed this Flash movie so many times.
that he's got other things he needs to work on.
Yeah,
he's
he has
like,
other
hey, I
stuff
got
he's gotta
career.
get to, which sucks.
But see and the original, if you go back to the original slate from when they, Justice League was supposed to have started.
Yeah.
Like we had enough set up in this movie for everything else. That's why my defense
A
of
Shazam movie was on the list for that slate,
on the
and
docket.
it still happened.
Yeah.
The only thing that didn't happen was Cyborg and the Flash movie.
Yeah,
Right.
And
And Green Lantern Corps.
well,
And Justice League 2.
well, apparently we're getting
And a bunch of other stuff. No, I'm kidding.
and apparently we're getting a Green Lantern show.
But is it connected to this? Is it DC adjacent? Or is it just going to be its
Well,
own
they
thing?
considered the 17 cut to be canon.
But they're
supposedly.
the same movie, though. That's why I don't
Yeah, it
understand.
is also the same movie. The only
Well-
thing that's different is Darkseid.
Yes.
Darkseid.
Like, there's
Darkseid
nothing
changes
that
everything.
comes after this movie that I'm like, that doesn't make sense if you use the Snyder Cut as your placeholder.
Well-
They all still work.
Well,
if anything, it opens
That's debatable because we don't know. Because there's nothing that has come out so far that was supposed to have really taken place after what was the end of this movie, the last scene.
Justice League or Aquaman takes place after Justice League.
Yeah, but
Birds
Justice
of
League was
Prey.
not referenced at all in it. Like,
That's Steppenwolf has mentioned in it once. So like, I feel like you could still have this be canon and no one's gonna notice or care. Is my point? And it's irrelevant. Like if you want to say that's canon, whatever.
It's a very similar.
MCU
It's a
has
similar,
holes in it too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's the same thing about after Avengers. It wasn't until later that the consequences in the first Avengers related to the New York getting decimated during the initial invasion comes into play later.
Yeah.
but not initially. Initially, they're just like, we got to get these characters out. We got to
Yeah,
get
like,
the stories
in
going.
the
It's not
theatrical
until
version-
like Spider-Man Homecoming. Homecoming, right?
Yeah.
That it's like the incident directly relates to the villain of the story.
Yeah. So like, Darkseid is briefly mentioned in the 2017 version. We made fun of it because it's obviously an ADR line. He's like, for the unity, and then he goes, for Darkseid. It's like he like leans into it.
For Darkseid,
Yeah.
Darkseid went home to his home planet. He died on the way to his home
in
planet.
this movie, there's nothing that's addressed in other movies. And I'm like, couldn't also be addressed in Snyder's movie.
Yeah.
If they want to like stick to their guns on that, die on that hill, whatever, I guess. But
If anything, it gives opportunity from time now for creatives to come in and just say, we're going to take from that now that it exists.
yeah.
But that's contingent on.
We'll get to this
on
later
the
because
rest.
this is the post conversation
this is
we're talking
the
about.
greater world.
But to get back to like, are there scenes I would cut? As a filmmaker or whatever, I can see why someone would be like, we should cut this. However, I would argue that like they just cut this for that whole 2017 version, and because that
so this can be whole hog because that's what people are coming
and you
for.
don't get to live with your characters. The Flash has one tiny scene where he meets his dad. They cut out some of the best lines from that scene, and he draws a funny face on the bald guy at the police station before he goes to meet in the jail before he goes to meet his dad. So like all the stuff they cut out are the parts where we get to live and breathe with those characters. You cut out all that Cyborg story, and then of course you're going to come out saying like Cyborg just feels like he's there, or the Flash just feels like he's
It
there.
completely undercuts.
They cut
these
out another
characters.
conversation with Aquaman. Yeah, Aquaman just feels like he's there. Like, so living with the characters is like, it's a matter of principle that like, yeah, that scene may not be necessary, but like, it's necessary if you want to have a good movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
See that, but going back to that particular scene that I'm
Not
talking
to mention,
about.
I like that song. It's one of the songs that I actually appreciated when the Flash rescues Iris. Yeah.
I love the scene, but like I said,
I'm keeping the scene, Blake.
I know you're keeping the scene.
I'm a producer on the movie, and I
am
get
throwing.
to say.
I am throwing that scene out for all those reasons that you just said are reasons I still would cut it though. On this particular, I feel like I still
think there are better places to cut where you can keep that scene and still have a shorter movie.
I still feel like I lived with the Flash without that scene.
Fair enough.
Is that? I mean, that's what I was getting at with
It's
it.
probably true.
I think one of the things is like, unless you know who Iris West is, that has no effect on you.
Exactly.
So
You
it
don't know her
could
name,
be anybody.
Was her name even mentioned?
No.
No, we
Yeah.
just know it is.
We
But
know who
but
she
that's
is.
completely like if I just like Star Wars transporter just appeared in a movie theater and this movie started playing and I was just like, oh, he saved that lady and they're gonna have a thing at some point. Well, that seems like something that's not. So I could see that, but everything else about it does fit into one thing of the story.
But he's meeting the love of his life, which is why we get the
right, but
the
we
song.
don't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
but the one thing it does is we see him trying to get a job. Because it is related to his story, where he's desperate. He's like, I'm good at all these things, but I'm not good at the thing that my dad needs me to be, which is like finding a job to make money to get him out. So he goes here and
to get a job as
and
a dog
I think,
walker.
as you're saying, Blake, it's to me, I was just like, and you're definitely not going to disagree with this. It's just it's one of the coolest visual depictions of
the freaking
Speed
hot dog.
Force.
Like
Yeah.
I love the fact
I
that he
could
just
cut the hot
steals
dog.
the hot dog.
I could cut the
No,
hot
that's
dog.
my favorite part of that scene.
I loved when his feet shift and his shoes explode
yeah.
and the glass turns.
He
I'm
just
like,
pokes the glass,
I've seen
it turns to liquid, and then explodes.
I've seen some dope Quicksilver stuff that doesn't come close to that.
Yeah.
That felt intimate. That felt very unique, and it felt super.
And it shows
in a
that
way
he
that
could-
wasn't just speed.
It shows that he could be powerful, which also juxtaposes with how very gingerly he's just like placing her down.
Yeah.
So she doesn't like incinerate.
yeah, or
instantly.
have any kind of horrible head wounds.
Yeah.
Like,
So like, I also like the way he play. Worth mentioning in this movie, Barry Allen is way funnier in this version than he is in the 2017.
Ezra
version.
Miller's charming
and he's
as
also
heck.
a lot less goofy in the scenes
Yeah.
where they're just talking in their clothes or whatever. They're not fighting or whatever. He's a lot less like, oh,
That
if she
sim-
kills you, we'll cover for her.
that cemetery scene changes a lot in tone because also, for better or worse, Cyborg is less humorous as well.
Yeah.
he's almost more serious.
But I think
because
it's funny how cutting out jokes made Flash funnier.
Yeah.
Or even like the way he's like, "Oh my God, I hope everyone's okay." Like, as he's, like,
It was
sitting over
funny
there.
because it was real. It felt like it was like his reaction was what like a nervous kid would have.
He has to be like, I have to pretend I'm scared in 3, 2, 1.
Ah!
Oh my God, I hope everyone's okay. Like,
I am so sorry.
yeah,
Like
yeah. When Aquaman just points at him, like, you.
I am so sorry.
All right, so I feel like we can get to some of the positives. And one of the positives from a longer runtime, this is the first one I want to start on because I want to ascend in my positives. Steppenwolf is a lot better here.
he's great.
Oh yeah.
he's a character.
Yeah.
and
he was fleshed out. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like you say, a character.
A lot of people said, like, get rid of the scenes of him talking to upper management or whatever. I'm like,
No.
keep all those.
Yeah.
It's his thing. First of all, let me talk about like the metaphysical aspects of the movie and the themes. All of Shakespeare, all of Steppenwolf's dialogue, all of Steppenwolf's dialogue is very Shakespearean. Desaad, I call to thee. I like that because it's very. In
Well, it's
line
all
with-
very royal. It's all very regal. It's all
and
very.
I even love the fact that as he's calling to Desaad for the first time, he's giving him the rundown. Like, I found the first box, and then he goes, he's like, Desaad, I fall before thee. And he goes, let me make a plea that I may come home after I deliver this world. First of all, great motivation. I just want to come home. Like, in the other one, he's like, I once said he was a one-dimensional villain. In the 2017 version, he's a zero-dimensional villain.
He's just.
we don't
he's
really
just
know
bad
what
guy.
he wants.
He was paper thin.
Yeah,
in
and
the
we don't know
original.
why he wants it. Here, he's at least a two-dimensional villain because we know what he wants and why he wants it, and we get little moments to breathe with him. Where, like, I noticed, like, almost all of his dialogue is different. Like, every scene that he had in the 2017 version, if that scene is in this version, it's different dialogue.
Yeah.
which I think is
It's a different.
refreshing.
It's a different performance from
Kieran
Hines.
Hines,
Thank
Mance
you.
Raider.
Yeah.
Uh,
Great actor who shows up in so many things I've gone back and watched and be like, Kieran Hines, there you are.
Yeah.
Like I watched Road to Perdition again for the first time recently. I'm like,
Yeah, Tom Hanks shoots him in the head. Or whatever.
no.
Or no, Daniel Craig
shoots him in the head. And it's like, oh, there he is.
Yeah. I
great Irish
even
actor.
like the parts like they're not scenes where he's talking. Like I think it's funny that when he's talking to Desaad or Darkseid, he shrinks.
Yeah.
he's very much docile or whatever.
Well, I love
But when he talks to like the Amazons, he's like, "I've come to enlighten you to the great darkness."
He
Like,
shows no
He
weakness
has
at that point
personality.
there.
Yeah.
And I even love the part where he's like, and this is not a positive for him, it's for the Amazons, where he goes, "I'll bathe in your fear." And Connie Nielsen says, "Daughters of Themyscira, show him your fear."
We have no fear.
So
And I was
good.
like, so dope.
good.
Joss, of course, cut that out because
For reasons.
but he adds
was female
But he
empowerment?
adds shots of Wonder Woman's. he adds shots of Wonder Woman's butt, so that's empowering, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all noticeably missing from Snyder's version.
Yep.
Which I think is very telling.
I've seen some people, again, more like on the naysayer side, who have come around to say, I will say that the Steppenwolf becomes this character that is
Tragic.
tragic.
And
He's an
fatalist?
example of middle management.
He's Dwight Schrute
Yeah.
trying to get the promotion that he'll never get. or whatever.
He's a pathetic yes man. He's a salary man who's just kind of like if I just do this enough, the boss will recognize me.
Well, and the other thing too is like a lot of people complain about one-dimensional villains that pose no threat. Like in the 17 movie, he was not a threat at all. We knew they were going to win immediately. Like there was a sense of like, how are they going to do this in this one at a certain point? Like ultimately, the good guys are going to win in the end of the movie.
Yeah, there's a few moments where I felt like he's noticeably more threatening here.
Yeah.
Particularly on the Themyscira fight where he's throwing horses around. There's a part where he decapitates an Amazon just right in front of you. And I was like,
gore.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. Was the gore.
yeah, he's much more powerful, but also his dialogue has a theme of like fatalism. Even when he's talking about himself, when he talks to in the theatrical version, when he at the very end of the chase scene, he says to Hippolyta, "Oh, noble queen, why do you fight? Once I've collected the mother boxes and started the unity, you will know the righteousness of power. Like you will love me, you all will." That's his dialogue in the theatrical version. It's real bad, and I don't like it. Here he goes, "Oh, noble queen, why do you fight? You can't save them. You can't save any of them." The fatalism in his character is something that comes back a lot.
Well, it
which I
shows
really
the
liked.
depth of like he's done this
a lot.
and he's done this to as he mentioned. I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's just kind of like going with the motions until he realizes that wait, this place is different, and not
special.
because they can pose a threat to me. There's some gold in these hills, and it's related to when he finds everything else. He's like, this will get me the big promotion.
Yeah.
Because not only is he threatening, and as people have
about all that when we get
We'll get to it.
around to it.
But-
so.
but-
I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, and I have the answers.
because I've also liked all the memes where they've put like sad cats.
Yes,
in his head, because
his eyes are so expressive
He's also
and
very
human.
vulnerable as well, and it kind of makes it like you feel bad for this guy, but also like his design is so great. Like it's so unique. It's something you can only do in the movies. Like this he's jagged and
his
sharp.
armor moves with his expressiveness.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
he was like a transformer at the same
They
time
cut that
as being
because
a DC
they
villain.
cut that part because they thought it was too scary. I don't know what's scary about it.
I don't know what's
It's not
scary
really
about
scary.
it, but
It's cool.
at least it looked good.
metal.
He didn't look good in the other one.
Yeah, he looks rubbery and weird.
Yeah, he looks like a Power
He looked
Rangers
like
villain.
Yes.
He looks like
no, he
Zed.
totally looked. No, he looked like Ivan Ooze.
He does look like Ivan Ooze.
Throughout this, I'm going to continuously talk about moments when I come across them. I love the scene going back to like Jack Kirby's. I always said that the New Gods and like Darkseid and the New Genesis and all that stuff was Jack Kirby's best creation. It's one of my favorite things he ever did, and that's saying a lot.
I need
like,
to read that one, by the way.
The New Gods, they're great. Even the 70s ones, which are a little goofier because it's the 70s.
The 70s, Silver
They're
Age.
they still hold up in the mythology and the Shakespearean nature. Lots of King Lear in there, where like Darkseid has to give his son to Highfather, and Highfather has to give his son to Darkseid, and they raise each other's sons to
It's
be
all
each
this
other's enemies.
old feudal sort of by tradition.
There's a great piece of this is an Easter egg, and a lot of people won't catch this, which is fine because you don't need to. But I still think even by itself, I think it's cool. Desaad says, and I quote, "Mighty Steppenwolf, who might have sat by the side of the Great One, but undone by foolish pride," or whatever. And he asks to come home or whatever, and then Desaad screams, "You betrayed him, your own family." So what that's a reference to is Darkseid is technically Steppenwolf's nephew, or rather, Steppenwolf is Darkseid's uncle. He is the brother of Darkseid's mother, Hegra. So when all this stuff went down, because we do get a past dark side and a now dark side,
Yes.
to differentiate.
Well,
So when he
Euxis and
becomes,
Darkseid.
It wasn't Darkseid originally, and
Yeah.
then they
So what they're referencing is the fact that, like, when Darkseid took the throne, Steppenwolf sided with his mother because that was his sister, and then he killed them and saw Steppenwolf as and what's the proper word, like a potential liability. So of course he gets rid of him and says, like, if you want back in the clubhouse, you have to go and give me 50,000 worlds. I love the pomposity and the Shakespeareanness in the dialogue.
yeah.
but
Darkseid
also-
is properly big, and his and Desaad is like, the way they've set up Desaad is
He's
I can't
sniveling
wait to
gross.
watch him die. Like he's just someone compared him to Randall from Recess, if you ever remember that cartoon.
I can't remember. I know Recess. but
He's the guy that he's always like writing up and giving
Yes,
notes for
that's
the,
him,
I was like, so it said this guy ended up being that guy. I'm like, yeah, he's the ultimate like brown nosing mouthpiece to the boss.
I love that when he does actually summon Darkseid, if you notice, like when he tells him, like, I found the anti-life here or whatever, and he goes, are you sure? Because he doesn't want to summon the boss unless he's sure.
Right.
And then as soon as he does, he starts
Send me
saying,
your
like,
verifications.
yeah, and when he says that, you notice he starts like chanting like Latin, like Crediuntem Infernium Imperium or whatever. Then he just fades back, and then I'm like, what's gonna happen? Because I hadn't seen this movie or I hadn't seen or skipped ahead or anything in this movie. So I saw it, and I was like, you notice all the parademons behind him get on their knees, and I was like, oh, are we gonna meet the big guy? And then like Darkseid comes through, and Steppenwolf immediately is like very submissive. I love the dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic that could be real cliche, but I think the actors sell it. And also, Darkseid has some of the best dialogues of I will stride across their bones and bask in the glow. I was like, it's
pretty
good stuff, man.
That's some good stuff.
Definitely glad we cut that out.
Happy to lose it.
You guys want to talk about some positives too? I started with Steppenwolf.
Blake, you throw some stuff out there that you notice. That hasn't
Something
been-
particular.
Well, are we talking just like scenes or just like overall?
Anything. It can be a thing that happens over the
Something-
course of the movie,
something very
or
unique
a
that
scene
kinda
that
made
you
it
really
stand
liked, or
out, you know?
a change with the character.
The
The score.
well, I actually like the score. I've seen a lot of people that have said negatives about it. I feel like the biggest thing, at least we got rid of Henry Cavill's squirrely lip, but
That was nice.
That was
But-
that's always been a big
Meme.
It's always been a sour mash.
the way that Superman returned in the whole movie was like probably one of my favorite things about the whole movie. Honestly, like he comes back, he kicks everybody's ass. Like that fight scene is epic.
Yeah.
And
I've seen a lot of memes like, God, they just really give it to Steppenwolf. So mean. And I'm like, first of all, fuck Steppenwolf. And second of all, the fact that you feel bad for Steppenwolf is a credit to like that he's a much better villain in this one. But anyway,
Right.
that's not a criticism. They kill their superheroes kill their villains in most of their movies.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The lack of a weird CGI'd off upper lip was
well, the CGI in general, I feel like was fleshed out a lot better in this.
Yeah.
Even though, I guess that was part of what the budget was thrown at to be able to, to finish the CGI that wasn't completed.
Yeah, because I'd seen the previs of Darkseid at a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
Like seeing him at the very end and stuff or whatever, like, or even in those scenes where he's sitting on the throne, like he looks great.
Yeah.
He looked-
No, the overall that was a major improvement over Ivan Ooze and all that.
Yeah.
The bad.
Well, I
But-
felt like even earlier scenes of like the Snyder Steppenwolf didn't look as good as the final product.
Yeah.
And then when he's in motion, I'm like, this works.
Well, I mean, we got him at the end of the Batman of BVS originally.
Yes.
So
There's that-
just for a brief second.
In the Ultimate Edition, there's a scene where we cut back to Lex Luthor in the Kryptonian ship, and the SWAT team officers come over the ledge and see him down there, and Steppenwolf's in front of him with the boxes.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah,
summons
that's
him-
right.
he
'Cause-
summons
and that's
him to
like
work.
in the
'Cause we
first
see
scene of
that
the movie.
scene
Yes.
during the opening,
Yeah.
which is really good.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
good.
just the opening itself, like in the theatrical version, it's a weird like kids who do a podcast like this one talking to Superman with his weird CGI lip,
And then a Russian
weird-
family.
and then a weird Batman scene where like we have to set up something about the mother boxes that we don't need to because the rest of the movie
Is that
clearly
the
did
scene
it
where
for us.
he's fighting the guy
guy
on the
from
roof,
Mindhunter.
and then the parademon
Parademon.
shows up, which him fighting the parademon was kind of neat. You get that little jump off and everything, but again, that scene definitely feels completely unnecessary.
And he leaves the criminal on the
because it feels
rooftop
like
at the end
it
of
feels
it.
like at that point Bruce doesn't care about what's happened because he's like, I got Batman stuff to do. In this, he's like, I'm on a mission.
Yeah.
Again, he's like an evangelist. Like he's
got one of the biggest
Batman
purposes
has
in the entire
no
film.
chill. He goes from like I'm gonna annihilate him to I will build a pantheon of gods in his name. Like,
he's kind of like he's kind of got. I mean, obviously the religious symbolism. He's kind of like a Saul turned to the Paul, where he's like I used to not like this guy. I used to be someone who persecuted him. Now I'm going around, teaching his name. Like we got to bring him back.
well, they really lean into it. There's a number of times where he's like, there's a part where he goes, "We're 5," and he goes, "But like we're nothing without Superman." They lean into that a lot. Which, if you're a person who didn't like that Batman is like such a very prejudiced killer in the last movie, this is a big mea culpa.
That's one of the big things that I saw as a positive from a lot of people who were naysayers about it as well, and naysayers about BVS is like if Batman versus Superman is the teardown of your characters that you don't like, this movie is the redemption of those characters. In the way that Batman versus Superman deconstructed them, this completely rebuilds them.
Right, like you had said, Rob. Like a lot of people who would say, "Oh, including myself, because an origin of you and I is we first really met."
Watching
BVS,
version.
and I still remember, and I still feel this way, even though the ultimate cut has redeemed it in my eyes. Walking out saying,
Matt was like, "I can take it or leave it."
"Yeah, I was just kind of like, who was this movie for? I don't like it." And it's
part 2.
But
We didn't know that.
I argue that the Ultimate Edition works by itself, and not even as a part 2.
No, it does.
I like the Ultimate Edition because it fills in the gaps that were so needed. But that's BVS.
Yeah.
This feels like you need BVS to get the ringing feeling of the opening of this movie, because I really love the opening of this movie and it really sets everything. It's very creative. It's very creative because it brings everything together to where it's going.
Did you have a specific positives or something that you wanted to talk about real quick? I have more, but I don't want to dominate everything in the conversation.
I feel like you space out these moments in the plot towards the end better. Like, I feel like when we got to the very end, when we're going to
Bajarnoff or whatever it's called.
right, it felt so much like this has to be our ending, and it didn't feel right. I was like, we're just rushing to this.
Yeah.
This being the original.
The pacing of that theatrical version is like a train. It has no peaks or valleys. It just goes.
It goes, and it goes to a place where I'm like, why here of all places, other than just to have a setting?
They even kind of answer that. Steppenwolf goes, "It's toxic."
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so it's a nice way to connect, or a great place to build your fortress.
Although a plot hole was how quick they got from the Batcave to that place in Russia, Slovenia, or whatever it was.
Cyborg souped up the flying fox. Like, that's what it really was.
Yeah, but come on.
That's what they do in the theatrical version. Look, like that's a kind of thing that I'm like, I don't care.
No, I don't care about
That
it.
doesn't
But I
mean
did think
anything.
about that. I was like, how did they get from the Batcave to Russia in like 2 minutes?
No. What you don't know
I've seen worse in Wonder Woman 84, where I'm like, how did they take that jet from DC to Cairo?
and back on one thing.
Who's taking bathroom breaks on that thing? Because that thing ain't going at Mach speed.
Am I in the minorities or saying that I liked 84?
We both liked it in brackets. I don't love it. It's
I don't
okay.
love it either.
It's okay.
Okay, I just wondered because
I accept.
I will say one of my negatives in this that was brought up more because of 84 is how much, aside from the scene at the museum, how much Gal Gadot's performance still kind of falls for me a little bit.
I can see
she
that.
still just doesn't have a lot of energy, and it really, when everybody else is kind of at a peak in this movie, she's not bringing it.
There's a but I would argue when it's not at a peak, she does great.
Yeah.
For example, the little girl.
That's the scene I'm talking about. Everything in the museum works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that because
Oh, you mean
that
the
scene,
bank?
The bank.
Yeah.
The bank.
Yeah, the bank.
Yeah. I thought it was a
She
museum.
works at a museum.
She works at a museum. I was just kind of like, are they just taking these kids to there's Madeline and the class are going to the bank anyway, but
does it? I mean, are you basically saying like it sometimes feels like she's just like reading the lines? phoning it in.
I think
in a
what
sense.
he means is when the big action stuff is happening, she's kind of reading them.
Kal-El, no.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I have an argument for that there, and this is going to be a little bit on another tangent. And sure, if she's an if she's an
But I
actor,
stand
she
by
needs
those
to-
quiet moments are really nice. When she
Yes.
tells that little girl, you can be anything.
No.
you want to be.
That's
I have no problem with the majority of her performance. I kind of agree with you in a certain aspect where sometimes it feels like she's phoning in the lines. I also, and this is not a. I hope this isn't taken the wrong way when I say this. I feel like part of that, her accent is kind of what makes that happen, though. At times, it's not necessarily that she's phoning it in; it's her accent. Like she doesn't always have the exact proper enunciation.
I've heard that before.
You know what I mean?
About that, but I feel like
I don't feel like
Wonder
it's a
Woman,
negative for her.
I feel like Wonder Woman, the original film, it's not a problem, and she's able to make it work. Of course, the movie's all about her, so you kind of get a little more of that. I think like of all the characters in this, she has. I mean, she does a lot. Like, I mean, the Amazonians introduce her to the plot, and she kind of becomes the person to literally carry the torch to everybody else to say, we're not alone, they're coming.
Also, they give her a small arc. It's not an arc, it's the beginning of an arc. Is at the end is Zack Snyder always said that his goal was for her to go back to the Mascara and become queen. So at the end, when she's holding the arrow and looking out, she's looking back at her mom, kind of thing. We'll get to that later.
One other thing I really liked, speaking of that, was there were these really great creative, and I'm saving the last one, the of these dream or fantasy sequences. One being when Cyborg is coming to learn what he's capable of, and we see like the scope of his powers. For one thing, and you guys agree with this, we finally understand what his powers are, and they feel so
I think we should make this the Cyborg block where we talk all about Cyborg because I have a bunch of stuff that I need to say.
But also the if we failed montage, like we see Diana being burned on a pyre.
Aquaman is literally skewered on his own weapon.
We see like if we failed, this will come, and I was like,
it's not an if we fail sequence though. It's what's happening.
That's an alternative reality.
Three things. You get an Excalibur line. The future has taken root in the present. That's from Excalibur. Two, because Zach loves Excalibur or whatever. Two, if you look at the Wonder Woman scene, Darkseid's there. When the ship lowers its doors and you see Darkseid walk out and just kind of look on, like, look at my handiwork. Look what I did.
Yep.
Oh, when she's burning or whatever.
Yeah.
I noticed
Because that shows like.
Three, we see Kilowog. Kilowog's the dead lantern.
Yeah, well, that's the second lantern I was talking about. That's
I didn't notice that Kilowog was there.
When it shows Superman flying over holding Batman's cowl, there's a dead body laying in front of it, and it's Kilowog laying there.
Oh, dang!
In front of the Justice League.
A lot of good little Easter eggs.
Also, because you got to go through that scene frame by frame to kind of see what's going on there. Because there's
I didn't catch it the first time.
Yeah.
I totally missed it.
And the shot at the beginning is when the Unity goes off. That happens again at the end of the movie. So it's sort of like it's both a premonition and it's a like you're still moving in this direction. You haven't changed anything yet. So
no.
Never mind. I'll say that at the end of this. But I have a little funny take on this whole thing with the whole like it's a conspiracy theory Snyderverse.
More Cyborg stuff.
Let's do more Cyborg stuff because
I have a lot to say.
We get the wonderful, as you mentioned previously, we get to see, Ray Fisher before that when he's just himself. He's just the character. And he's so real and so vulnerable. And so it's a good little performance. I love the football sequence because it's very well thought out. Like, I'm not somebody that follows sports too much. So sometimes a lot of that falls away with me. And I'm like, yep. This is really well filmed. This is a really well filmed
Zack
sports
Snyder's
sequence.
son helped him do that because
That's really cool.
His son plays football.
That's
at
really cool.
Some high school or university or whatever.
Who was the actress that played his mother?
Karen Bryson, something like that.
Of course, this also meant that we would get more of
Joe Morton.
No more Joe Morton, and I'm always there for more Joe Morton. Yeah. He gets a full arc in this, and his
arc has so many more layers than people understand, and I'm going to get to it in a second.
I will say, coming up, like his death sequence, I felt like
careful, Matt. Be careful.
I thought we said we're open spoilers.
Go ahead. No, I'm just be careful because I have a lot to say about this.
Okay.
And don't you dare shit on it.
I won't say anything. Though.
Okay then.
I'll wait. But I will say, like, the way he plays Cyborg now, the way that he plays and
you mean like at the end of the movie?
No, the whole thing. It feels so very different from the original production.
Oh yeah.
And there's a moment where I made this connection with you where I was like, I don't know if they mean this, but his name is Victor. And when he shows up every now and then, he's like hiding himself, and he's like, I'm a monster. And I'm like, he's Frankenstein's monster, like Victor Frankenstein.
Yes.
And I was like, this has to be that. Like he's like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Frankenstein. Because he's in the original novel of Frankenstein. You know, he's becoming smarter. He's becoming more capable. He's becoming a reflection of man.
Yeah.
And that great sequence where Joe Morton, where his father is like saying, you now have the ability to control over everything. Nothing can be encrypted from you. Nothing can be safe from you. Yeah. You could stop or stall nuclear war. You can, I thought it was kind of silly at first, but I've come to love when the bull and the bear tackle each other. I'm like, that's such a fun.
I thought that was okay.
I thought it was kind of a fun little showing of what as he's just walking around, like taking in awe of this. And I was like, this is very cool. This is a very cool ability that he has.
The big scene that a lot of people zero in on is when he gives the lady. Yeah. You follow this waitress through like 4 or 5 scenes. There's some really heartbreaking scenes just in that little montage there. She's working at a job. Guy leaves her like 50 cents at the table. She takes the money and she gives it to a homeless guy. Mm-hmm. She gives her tip to the homeless guy. She's driving home on the train. She gets to the store with her kids, and you see her take some stuff off the thing. She looks at it, basically looking at the price, and be like, I can't afford that. Puts it back, and then she comes home, and then she's been evicted.
Yeah.
Like there's an eviction notice. She's been locked out of her house, and then Ray Fisher just straight up like gives her like 100 G's. He doesn't steal money.
No, he just creates.
He creates more numbers into her account. Like,
because I feel like I was like, money's not real. I discovered money's not real.
That's exactly what
I'm real.
I'm real, and I can make it real.
Yeah, and I thought that that really got me a lot during the movie.
He does become the heart of it, because he's the only one in this movie that is coming to terms with their powers. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is kind of gets their powers. Everyone already understands it. Even Barry has lived with his powers long enough that he's like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it. I'm super fast.
Cyborg's one of the greatest supporting characters of all time, and even in the DC like comic universe. I can't tell you a time that I've ever wanted to sit down and read a just Cyborg story. Mm-hmm. But almost every Justice League story is a Cyborg story when you really look at it at its core, and that's what this movie
since they put him
too.
On the Justice League.
Yeah, absolutely. he is the core, but I also feel like his powers have become more than what they were before he was on the Justice League.
They can linger into Deus Ex Machina real quick if you're not careful. Like where he can just do anything. Like
you
gotta be careful. But I really appreciated that the irony is that like with his powers he becomes like, not to be like a big meme, but the system, and he can choose who the system works for, kind of thing. Yeah, and I really appreciated that. I also appreciated we don't get enough of it, but I like when he learns to fly and he smiles for what I think is the first time in the movie.
Yeah,
except for like for the football scene later.
But this is
it may have been the only
time
he's
lost
everything.
Yeah.
May have been the only time in the movie he smiles too.
Yeah. I want to get to the thing that really hit me home, and it's such a subtle thing. I think you'll appreciate it because you're an actor and you get it. Mm-hmm. Throughout the movie, I think Silas is constantly questioning himself as, did he do the right thing for his son?
Right.
Did he give him a life that was too painful and too torturous? Was he obviously by the end we come to understand that he realizes he wasn't there as a father enough. And I saw some people making fun of it, being like, oh, he didn't come to his son's football game, so he's mad at him. Like, no. The empty chair represents a figure who's not in your life.
Right.
If you're too if you didn't see past that, then this movie wasn't for you anyways.
And I mean it's doubled home with the fact that after the accident, you start looking at all the equations. Like, if you had been there, would that not have happened? Would mom still be alive? Would I not be what I am now without my consent, what you made me?
Well, yeah, because she spends her time. There's another little thing that I noticed in there. When you look at that drive home, she spends a lot of it trying to comfort him. Yeah. And then when the car hits, you see his arm reach out, implying that his arm was smashed off of his body trying to save his mom. Right. It happens like that. But the fourth time I watched it, I freeze framed it, and I was like, oh my God. Little things like that add a lot to it.
Again at another point too.
Yes, you do. So when that's one thing is like she wouldn't have had to comfort him if he was there,
right?
And he wouldn't have been so upset, so that wouldn't have happened. And I think Joe Morton, to his credit, also comes in and he goes, "I won't let you die. I won't allow it. Whatever."
Because when he sees him on the bed and it hits him like Like he didn't have to say it, but it says like I wasn't there and this happened because I wasn't there.
And then he adds to the insult to the, as far as Victor's concerned, insult to injury is he brings him back and gives him a life that was too torturous. And it really got me. I got real emotional the first time I watched it, because I watched it by myself. And some people thought it was confusing. By the time I got to that scene, I didn't find it very confusing. I think I got what was going on. There's a scene where when he's telling him what all his powers are, he has the tape recorder, and the tape recorder is a message that he can give his son because his son doesn't want to look at him.
Right.
And he tells him like all these things you can do, like you're going to be in an age of ones and zeros, you're going to be like a god on this earth or whatever. And then he goes,
it's a great monologue.
I've been talking to you from these are the meanderings of a scientist. Let me talk to you from my heart like a father.
And that's when he breaks it.
And he
He's
breaks
like, I don't want to hear from you as my father because you're not,
and
or
then,
I don't want you to be.
So later on in the movie, even like when he rescues him from Steppenwolf, they just have a little moment where he was like, I wasn't sure you'd come. And he goes, you're my father. And he leaves him on, and he goes back and he goes to help Batman or whatever going on inside. And Silas, I think, goes back to Star Labs because then they have the whole quarantine thing. And I think that he wanted his son to grow and to be the man that he always thought he could be, even with this big, what's the word? Like a double-edged sword. His powers are a gift and a curse at the same time.
Double-edged swords.
Yeah. He wanted his son to grow into this powerful person that he always knew he could be. And there's a great moment at the beginning of it. At the beginning of they're bringing Superman back, and the doors open, and Victor and the League walks through, and he sees his son standing among these titans. And I think that's the moment where he's about to tell him, like, shut everything down. It's all a hack. And then he immediately sees his son, and I feel like that's the moment where he sees his son as he's done it,
right?
And like he's become everything I wanted him to be, and
he's accepting.
And
his place in this
I wasn't even there to see it, but he's standing next to warriors and gods and Batman and all these like great people who do these amazing things, and my son is now one of them.
That's his crew. That's who he rolls with now.
And then he immediately says, like, cancel all that. I was wrong. And then he goes, don't let anyone in or out. And then he looks back. He gives his dad a little nod. Some people made fun of the nod. Like, Snyder doesn't even know how to do the slow nod or whatever. And I was like, I thought the nod was great.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, quit nitpicking shit.
Yeah. And what comes back to is what I'm saying. These are like, there's negatives that I think are real, and there's negatives that I think are just made by just bitter assholes. And that's one of them. And the thing that got me, the thing that made me weep was when Steppenwolf kills him. And the reason that made me weep is not because Silas, I think, the way I read the scene, allows himself to die because this whole time he's been questioning, like, did I make a life too torturous for my baby boy? And then he sees what his son has become, and he goes, he doesn't need me anymore.
Right.
This is going to hurt, but he's going to be okay. And it really hit me in the heart. And the thing that sells it is Ray Fisher's reaction.
Yeah,
because his reaction is, oh no, I'm about to lose both of them.
Right.
And
he does
agony.
sell that. I kind of just wish it was a little longer.
I know.
I kind of wish, because it quickly jumps over to the solution. Like, oh, but he figured it out.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad. I'm glad that because that gave that meaning, that gave that depth. Like he didn't just die for a tragic movie's sake. Like he's a scientist who discovered. I had
the same initial feeling, but as I let it marinate, I feel like you don't need it to be longer because the rest of the movie is
builds
longer.
up to it.
All the notes up to that, the little moments they share is the development. So people say, like, God, Snyder doesn't let his characters talk enough. I agree with that. But the flip side is he lets them do enough.
Yeah.
And all those moments in between
fair.
them, like, moved me.
You don't have to have tons of dialogue to develop.
In fact,
story.
better acting comes from less in some situations because it's acting is doing to achieve an objective.
Yeah.
And that's you see that scene by scene.
And his reaction, also like he's doing double duty with this performance. He's crying and he's like, my father's gone, I couldn't save him. And then he's getting up trying to like get his haggard body to work again because Steppenwolf just slashed him into the door. And his dad died what was likely an excruciating pain standing next to the surface of the sun.
Right.
I mean, it was excruciating, probably over very quickly. So,
but it's still pretty brutal.
Yeah.
He looked like he got Thanos snapped there for a second.
Well,
it also kind of looked like John Osterman turning into.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
But the reason is because like the mother boxes, like they use heat and fire because that's where they're from. They're from Apocalypse. Apocalypse is mostly fire. So like they hold all that heat, so he was marking the box so that they could find it later or whatever. Which some people had trouble keeping up with. I admit, like at first, I was like, "Does that really matter?" But then I realized over the course of the movie, they explain that and show that a lot. But that's one of the big things of Cyborg that I wanted to get to was the passing of the torch to his son and how much that really moved me. It moved me a lot more than I thought it was. I thought I would be like, "Oh no, his dad's gone," but like the thing that sells it is all those little pieces between him and his dad. And you get a nice conclusion to it at the end. Like, now you're not just going to be a shut-in. You're going to stand among the brave ones, is what he tells him.
You've inherited the safety of the earth.
And some people are like, "Oh, DC should have done all these solo movies to give these characters their moments." Like,
no.
There is like 3 solo movies worth of development just in Cyborg alone in this movie.
It is a Cyborg solo movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not obviously, but like I said, it is Cyborg's backstory. Yeah. It is Cyborg being the heart of this movie. I don't need a Cyborg movie now. Like
I still like.
I would still like there to be one, but I don't need one to know how his character came to be his character.
I think this movie made me want more of him because I now see the extent of his ability.
I want more of him in the
challenge to a potentially good story.
I want more of him in the sense of who he is in that movie with the overarching. Like I said, he's the greatest supporting character of the team, and even that reflects in go into the comics as well. That's where I want more of him, and that's
I would definitely like more of him with the League as well.
Yeah,
it sucks.
But what I'm saying is I don't need him as a solo movie, but I do want more of him as a solo movie. But I definitely want more of him as the League character.
It sucks that we won't get him in the Flash movie. That's all I can say.
That sucks. No. But hopefully this will be this because. Ray Fisher hinged a lot of things on this, and I think it paid off.
Yeah,
because it's a great display of his talents.
If it's a swan song, it's a pretty good one for sure.
Hopefully not, because he's so young.
I don't want it to be, but like that's enough of Cyborg. Let's talk about some other stuff, some other positives. Do we need? I mean, I feel it's worth like for a movie that I did feel like dragged in that middle third. The finale more than makes up for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how different it was and how many moments I was like, oh my God, I've read all these articles and seen all these Vero posts and there's still surprises in here somehow. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Like, I'm still shocked that some things happen in there that I wasn't expecting. And I'm like, yeah, that's magical. That's pretty great. Yeah.
The one that people unanimously came to coming back to is Superman's return is way more boss. He really gives it to Steppenwolf.
Yeah, he feels Superman. Like he feels, because we're building up to him. I still love the scene when I think it is Cyborg that displays what they're all what they're all thinking but not saying, and you see the digitized cape and everything, and you just see Bruce just looking at it like and that I loved it in the trailers and I loved it in this because they don't have to say it. We all know where it's going to. Yeah. And these new scenes, I'm imagining the reshoots, right, where he goes back to Smallville. He goes back to the.
No, that's all from. There's some of that's in the theatrical.
Yeah,
they're not reshoots. They were in his original cut.
There was some stuff that was different about it.
I guess it was It doesn't have the mustache thing, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there was some parts of it.
Mm-hmm. If he has the mustache thing, it was a reshoot.
Okay. But these are all that were original.
Yes.
Because they all are really good.
In fact, if you notice when in the theatrical version, when he first lands with Lois, she says, "You smell good." And then he looks back at her and goes, "Did I not before?" And you might go, "Rob, that makes no sense." And I would say, you're right. It doesn't. Because her actual line in this movie was, "You spoke." And he goes, Did I not before? It makes so much sense. Yeah. Well, and you can clearly see her lips in the theatrical version. They just overdubbed it.
I never paid attention to that. But I only watched that movie one time.
Wow, that doesn't make any sense.
It's so stupid.
Yeah,
why?
You spoke.
You spoke is a better line.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they photoshopped U-Haul boxes into her hands instead of the
carriage because she might be pregnant now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we get the scene because she also has this nice little arc throughout that's now a little more present. So you get some more Amy Adam and
overcoming grief.
Yeah.
And is she gonna move on? Right as she moves on, Superman comes back. Not today, baby. I appreciate it.
And the whole scene of them, realizing that he doesn't know because he's just been thrust back into the world is terrifying and all that, and it's really lands.
I will be the first person to say the one critique I think I actually do have now that I think about it. I would have liked more from Henry Cavill. Not that he doesn't do enough. It's the double-edged sword of he doesn't let his characters talk a lot. the closest we get to him is like, your mom lost the house, and he goes, I don't understand. Like, well, how did she lose it? And he goes, she's a proud woman, Clark. And then she gives him his plaid shirt or whatever. He puts it back on, and she goes, she loved it here. And he goes, I loved it here. And you hear that Hans Zimmer piano music, and then you see him start to smile. The camera moves out. You see the swing from Man of Steel.
Yep.
And I was like, that's a great callback. I wish we had like one, maybe two more of those. In fact, I'll give you the Flash scene or the I come to Alfred to just for no reason kind of scene. He goes to see where they are or whatever, but you could have cut it out.
I
love that
like
scene.
because you get something I didn't expect, which is Alfred and Superman talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
that's
okay.
so
So
cool.
the Kevin Smith thing about it was like Kevin Smith said that was originally supposed to be Green Lantern that came there.
No, doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Why would that make any sense?
They didn't know who the
Hello,
Lanterns
Green
were at that
Lantern.
point.
Very good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
right.
you know
Hello,
what?
John.
What we can get rid of is there's a second Steppenwolf scene where he calls Desaad again. It's before Darkseid shows up, and he's just asking like, I've gotten the second box now, and I put a shield over everything. He's like, where's the third box?
Yeah,
get out of here.
yeah, we
And
don't
it's like
need-
just snip that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like it's
sucks
one
'cause
of those
I like-
scenes where it's like the movie needs to take a moment to remind everybody where we're at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't really need.
It
to
sucks
do
because
that.
Kieran Hines gets some nice it gets nice moments in all those scenes, but
Yeah.
you could get rid of that middle one.
Yeah.
He's got 3 scenes where he does that. Just
Where it's like
have
we
two,
kinda-
and then give me more Superman stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Like
all
you know
I'm
how you
saying.
could do that? Show him put the mother box down, the camera slides back, and you see Desaad nod, and that's it. Like you could do something like that.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that too because I felt the same way about it. I didn't feel like there was enough of Superman.
He doesn't really talk to any of the team.
No, he doesn't.
Like, I would like to see. If we do get a sequel from this, which we'll get to later, I would like to see them interact more. In fact, the parts where
Especially with Aquaman, the Flash, and Cyborg, because he's like, "Who are you guys? Tell
Yeah.
me about yourselves, because I don't
Exactly.
know who you
He
are."
doesn't know much about
In fact,
them at
that's
all.
some
if
of
anything.
the best stuff I liked is when when Cyborg and Aquaman team up and they're like, "Hey, remember me?" And then they go, "You want to kick his ass?" Like, "Yeah, let's do it together." And they do a team move.
Yeah.
Aquaman does the thing and he does like a shockwave cannon and knocks.
Is that
Steppenwolf on
where
his
we
ass.
get the my man?
No, that's not in this one.
Oh.
Or no, he gets that. That's when they're in the sky and he goes, "You're
That's-
welcome," and he goes, "My man," and then he throws him.
Because
Yeah.
I do like the my man.
That's fine.
I like
I'm
the my
talking
man.
when they fight Steppenwolf together before Wonder Woman arrives.
That's another thing that I really like in that scene right there where they finally all of them come together before Superman's back and like
Fighting together with teamwork.
when it shows all 5 of them when it
earned.
shows the 5 of them literally moving forward like everybody's moving through air at one
Oh, the
time
hero
and
shot?
then it
Yeah.
freezes and that's straight out of the comics.
Yeah.
Like if you can't like that is a comic book
Yeah.
frame right there.
that
like
that has been done a
big
million
splash
times,
page.
and it's what you get there for. You
And that
see
one-
everybody punching.
that one was the one where I went, "Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you."
There's a couple. There's a
That's
couple
where-
of
that's
Yeah,
where
no, I
it's
know.
like-
There was a Batman throwback to the Dark Knight Returns as well. Like that happened in Batman vs Superman
Even
as well.
the-
But there was another one in
the
this
lightning.
one. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the shot at the end is also a great hero shot as well. Because that's when we
'Cause it's
finally
like-
have Superman back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Underneath the
one with them standing on
themes
top
and
of the-
underneath
Yes.
the gravitas of it is still a story about is still a story written by a guy who loves superheroes and comics.
Yeah.
And so
I
we still
think
want
so.
that.
Do we want to talk about like Flash turning back the clock and how awesome that was?
Yeah, that was pretty dope. That was pretty cool.
Why'd you cut that out? It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Why'd you cut that out? It doesn't matter. It exists now.
Can we also talk like I felt like during the final battle, we skipped over the battle in the tunnel. Do we want to talk about that, or do we want to?
It's kind of.
It's mostly the same.
It's almost mostly
They
exactly.
just add
the
more stuff, and there's a
same.
great thing where Flash doesn't take Batman aside and be like, "I'm really scared, and I don't push. I've just pushed some people and run away. I don't know how to do this." Instead, what Flash says, which I think is a much better thing, it shows that he's less of a coward in this movie. He goes, "I'm really missing Superman right about now."
Yeah.
As they're about to fight Steppenwolf or whatever, and there's a part where in this fight they don't really do it together. They kind of all split up and fight separately, which the
Right.
Flash says, "Guys, this is not together." Remember, Wonder Woman said we need to do it together, and then later on they do it together.
Together,
And
Yeah.
we do
win.
get some team building. So like, but mostly it's the same. They just
Well,
got
they
rid
didn't
of
all. Yeah, they didn't all get along. Yeah.
they got rid of Flash falling on Wonder Woman's boobs. They got rid of Steppenwolf saying "mother" a lot. So they got rid of all the stuff that I didn't like about the scene, and they added back stuff that I thought was better.
You know what we didn't get from Cyborg in this movie though? I don't unless I missed it.
Is it booyah? I
We
don't
didn't
care.
get a booyah.
I don't care.
Yeah, the booyah is such a such
a contentious thing
now. All I needed was the my man from Momoa.
My man.
My man Momoa. That's all
But
I need.
that's Cyborg's catchphrase. That's the only thing.
Is
Ray
it-
Fisher was just like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, apparently, like, that's the big hoopla. Is like, that's what they said when Ray Fisher was making his investigation.
Booyah Gate.
Yeah, where he was like, Joss Whedon was a real prick on set and was gross and abusive and unacceptable. And John Berg, one of the producers on the movie, came back with like, he's just kind of saying that because he didn't want to say that booyah line we made him reshoot. And I was like, if I have to get rid of like, oh, he didn't say his catchphrase, but I get all this instead, I'll take all this every.
I didn't like it in the 17 one. I didn't like where it was placed or anything. It was
even make
awful.
Sense. Like,
Yeah.
he says booyah to nobody, to nothing.
To nobody
Like,
in particular.
It's like he picked a booger and was like, booyah, as he
Like,
flicked it.
But one thing
he incinerates his eyes like, ooh, yeah, I could do this now.
One thing I noticed in the finale that I really love is after they all kind of get to the big tower or whatever, Flash is running around and Cyborg is getting much more anxious to the point where I was like, I know how this story ends. Flash is going to go back in time, reset the clock, touch Victor, send him into the mother box, and they're going to beat Steppenwolf or whatever. And I was like, I knew what was going to happen. And when Cyborg screams when the boom tube opens and you see Darkseid just walk up like, I'm almost here, baby. And like when Cyborg screams, Barry, like I was like, God, this is intense. And I feel like they could still somehow lose, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. And when it does happen and the Flash just reaches out his arm and everything slows down and that great score starts playing, I was like, this is so dope.
Yeah.
And even though it goes back to his dad. His dad says, make your own future, Barry. Stop living in the past. And that's exactly what he says. He goes, Dad, I want you to know your kid was one of the best of the best. It's so good.
That's
It's
good.
so heartfelt.
Oh, that's good.
And you just get rid of it. And instead, in the theatrical version, we have him and Superman. We save a Russian family. And Superman carries a whole building on his back. It doesn't make sense. Physics, it would just crumble to the ground. But we gotta have. If superheroes don't save people, then everyone
What are they
loses their
doing?
minds or whatever. Yeah, it's dumb. That finale is great.
And I know that people were not like we're like, why did they kill Steppenwolf? And I'm like, again, fuck Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf was
Dude,
always
it's-
supposed to die.
It's
He's
really,
a henchman.
Yeah.
It's what he's there for.
And it also just is like, you know, he's a bad dude, and it feels so. And it also kind of calls back to BVS, and it gives Wonder Woman this moment to show that she's the warrior. She slays.
She cuts his head off.
Yeah, she cuts his head off and just hands it off to Darkseid to be like, damn.
You know what? You know what?
Darkseid crushes it.
Yeah, it's just like,
I would have liked one little moment. I think I said this to you or to someone else, where because they all look back and they see Darkseid looking at them. One, why doesn't he Omega beam him through the boom? Can he not pass through the boom tube yet? Is that why? He could have killed at least one of them. But yeah, I would have liked.
seeing that in the flashback when
Oh yeah, he melts Willem Dafoe.
Yeah,
with
and I was like, oh,
yeah.
can't wait to see more of that.
Yeah.
If I
And we see Superman lose Lois. We see her
Yeah.
holding her charred corpse as Darkseid just puts his hand on him.
So back to that
Like,
Flash
you're mine now,
scene,
baby.
though. That my favorite thing about that whole scene is probably like one of the silliest things that nobody else talked about. Because I'm a fan of movie, like I'm super stoked about Mortal Kombat coming. So blood and gore.
Yeah.
The unvaporization of all the
Superman's
characters
hand.
of Superman's hand and all that
Cyborg's
stuff.
face.
That was freaking
That was
awesome.
neat.
Half of Cyborg's face or whatever.
yeah, watching everybody just kind of
And just, it's like,
disintegrate. I was
you
like,
know, when you go to a comic book movie, you want like some eye candy and some really great visualizations and like the ground forming under his feet as he
Yeah.
is breaking
That whole
light
sequence,
barriers.
the Speed
So
Force
awesome.
is so good in this.
Yes,
Looks
and I was
great.
like, I would have rather had that than like them saving a family, and it's
I don't
just
need it.
It's such a misplaced opportunity.
The
to,
stakes
like-
are so much higher that doesn't need
And that's why I
a
get-
small scale stake.
and that's why I
not
get
that people's
so-
lives are a small scale stake, but
Yeah.
in this movie, it's the universe.
Why would people live in Bizarnoff, Russia?
Yeah.
No one would live there, or whatever. But
It's a ghost town.
yeah, I feel like that's why the argument of like why are all Snyder's heroes like brutal killers or whatever? And I was like, you don't have a problem with them killing. You have a problem with them overtly killing. There's half a dozen people that Iron Man has killed in his movies, but they
Yeah.
do it in such a way. The reason you don't like it is because Aquaman comes up when he's not looking and impales him on his trident, and then Superman punches him, and then they cut his head off. Like it's they straight up trounce him. Whereas like like when I don't know, when Crossbones gets killed in Civil War, no one kills him. He tries to suicide bomb Captain America, and then Scarlet Witch kind of finds a way out of it. Like, I have no problem with the violence in these movies, and it's the one argument I find the most boring is that people complain about like the deaths, the killing, the destruction.
It doesn't land.
It makes it also humanizes it to a degree, but at the same point, it's like, does nobody? Apparently, these people never watched Man of Steel because they don't remember how much Superman struggled with having to kill Zod, how much he did not want to kill Zod.
No, all they heard was like, Superman's the murderer in this movie.
Yeah,
as if that's like what murder is. Yeah, to kill a man.
Well,
and,
okay,
like, annihilate the world.
Comic Superman is like never gonna kill, not supposed to kill.
That's not even true. He kills Doomsday.
No,
with a big punch to the face. Like, he literally bludgeons him to death. Like,
but they don't
he's
count
killed Zod in the comics. He locks him in a yellow kryptonite room, and they poison and die. It's fucked up. But like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if Superman has
and also
to kill
it's
eventually.
like in comics, whenever it gets this level of dark and like stakes get that high, it in the physical medium of comics, it's usually praised as like bold and creative or critically acclaimed.
Miracle
but,
Man.
But you can't do
example.
it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not that Snyder.
There.
It's what I always said. It's not that he kills. It's that he kills overtly.
Yeah.
He makes Superman snap his neck.
It's a
the only
point.
way to stop
It's a
him.
thematic point. I know it's like, you know, it's not exactly Christopher Reeves, you know, Richard Donner's Superman. But it's not that
Who
kind
also
of movie.
kills Zod. He still kills them in that movie.
Yeah.
He just doesn't do it overtly. He throws him down. He does the Disney death, as you call it. He throws him down a foggy chasm and he falls forever.
Yeah,
but he's dead.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But like, it's not that like Snyder makes them kill. It's that he makes them kill overtly. And I think really this is a problem with the messaging, not with what the message is.
Yeah.
And like if you can't watch him kill, like if you didn't watch Man of Steel and watch him snap Zod's neck and be like, oh my God, he just had to kill the last member of his race, the agony, he must be feeling terrible inside, and then he screams. It's like he didn't kill him, be like, yeah, I'm glad he's dead. Like he was
just like,
he's not a sociopath.
He's not the Joker.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh fuck.
And people come up with these stupid arguments, and they're like, oh, just cover his heat vision with your hand or fly up with him. And then what? The whole purpose of the end of Man of Steel is that it is written in such a way that Superman is facing a villain who literally says, like, I'm not going to stop until they're all dead. So if you want to beat me, you have to kill me.
Right.
Like, that's the whole
dropped
point.
the gauntlet.
Yeah. And people say, like, well, don't write the scenario that way. Write it differently. So what you're really saying is that, like, the deaths don't mean anything. You just don't want your heroes portrayed in a way that makes them have to make decisions like that, which is stupid.
Which this is a 3-point arc. Like you said, BVS is the sequel. This is a 3-point arc relating to this character almost becoming redeemed from the damage he's done, almost like a baptism. Almost
and like in Batman v Superman, it's a lot less destruction. Like, he's not taking Doomsday through buildings.
Yeah.
If anything, like he's a much more tried and tested Superman, where he does more saving of people in that movie than fighting. There's a whole montage where he like saves people from that space shuttle or pulls an oil tanker. Like, it's
to the point where he's almost questioning, like, what is my purpose? You know, because it's like, you know, or everyone else is questioning, what are you?
Yeah. We didn't even talk about the history scene, which I thought was fucking like so dope. When the Middle Earth battle where they fight ancient Darkseid or whatever.
Yeah, and then you get not Hercules, but
Zeus, Ares, and Artemis.
Yeah, and the Lantern.
This is Yalin Gur. Is that him?
Yalin
Gur.
And the men. It was like, and one mother boss went here, and 9 rings were given to the race of man.
Yes.
And I love the.
I think Zack Snyder made comments about how that scene was very Lord of the Rings.
Well, he wants this whole Justice League trilogy to be seen as like his Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, sure.
It's a big epic battle.
Yes.
Because that's supposed to happen again at the end of Justice League 3, where all the Atlanteans and Amazonians and the gods come together again to fight.
We stop hiding in the shadows from each other and come together to make Earth.
But
really
just like that scene is so much fun to watch. Even like how bloody it is. Like Darkseid, and there's a great Easter egg where Darkseid cuts off the Lantern's hand, and the ring comes off, and then he tries to grab it. But he doesn't know that you have to be chosen by the ring.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know that because he's an idiot. Because he's young and stupid at this point.
And the ring's just like,
and then before he can grab it, Artemis just shoots him with an arrow right in his pec.
Yeah, I love the ring just floating around him. He's like, I can have anything, and it's like you can't have that because you ain't got no courage.
And I love and I love people saying like Darkseid's such a bitch in this scene. He gets beat up by Ares. Like, no, he doesn't. He gets beat up by the Green Lantern, Ares, Artemis, Zeus, and the
if anything,
Amazons,
it shows that
and
like
the ancient Atlantean king who's fighting.
If anything, it shows he's a tough customer, and we needed an alliance of our demigods and gods to fight him off, to at least like wound him.
Yeah.
To the point where he's like,
and boy, do they
I'll
wound
be
him.
back.
When Ares comes with that axe and just buries it into his clavicle, and the blood just explodes.
And wasn't that was kind of what his Ares overall, like his costume was supposed to look like for the Wonder Woman movie originally too, right?
The idea was that Snyder said like he wanted this version, because this takes place before the Greek gods we see in Wonder Woman.
Gotcha.
He wanted the Greek gods to look more savage, because this is before they had reached like we're wearing togas and we're civilized now, or whatever.
It's before
so they're like ancient versions of the Greek god. They have like, you know, Ares is wearing a big old scary helmet and like bones around his neck.
They're more primal.
Yeah, they're more
less Athenian and more.
Even the Amazons, if you notice what they're wearing, it's not like plate armor and beautiful capes. It's like bones and tribal stuff. So like it's meant to be like this
prehistoric type.
It's Justice League 10,000 BC, which keeps back with the themes of like these are gods. Like there was a Justice League 10,000 years ago. There must be one now, and the old gods are dead, and we have a whole new pantheon here at the end. Like it really drives home. Even like the weird scene where I think I talked with you, where the girls sing for Aquaman.
Yeah, and I
was like, that's a scene.
We talked about that.
Yeah, that's a scene where they're basically giving like this old Viking ode to a sea god, which bathes it in this sort of mythological vibe.
Yeah. It didn't have to go the second verse.
No, I said you should have cut it off. When they started going, I was like, that's really, she sniffs it, and I was like, we're going to cut now. Oh, second verse, here we go. And I was like, you could have cut it off, but I get why he leaves it there.
Sure.
So
and I think if you're here for this movie and you're here for its vibes, and a lot of people seem to like it, then he just gives it all to you. And he's like, you parse out what you don't like.
So I think we're close to getting to the end of it here. We need to talk about two more things, I think. One is Manhunter, and the other is the final dream sequence.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I've heard some people be like, and I think they're just being ignorant on purpose, where I'm not sure completely how I felt. I get why when Martian...
You wanted the Martian Manhunter scene to not have the Manhunter and it actually be Diane Lane coming to see her.
Well, more I was like, I had to sit there and think like, why impersonate her? And it was to get Amy Adams' character to get out of her slump and start moving things forward, because he's kind of a chess master behind things.
But I have seen people say they would have liked it if it was just Martha coming to be like, I miss you. I know you miss my son, and it's okay. You can come out.
I said this to you, and I think you kind of maybe agreed with me. The first Manhunter cameo in the movie, because there's two. If you haven't seen the movie
one
yet.
in the middle, one at the end.
Yeah, one in the middle, one at the end. The first one I could have done completely without that scene.
Again, it could have just been Martha.
It did very little for the plot of the movie.
Again,
it did not have to be Martian Manhunter. Because even my wife was like,
it didn't have to be Martha Manhunter.
Martha Manhunter, I love it.
My wife and my roommate were both like, because I was in the other room when they were watching when that scene happened the first time. Because I've watched it all the way through once and watched from hour 2 on a second time, and I remember them going, so that was the cameo that I've been reading about, but who was that? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's Martian Manhunter. My wife looks at me, that's the stupidest name ever.
Shut up, Mish.
Well, how about John Johns?
I'm leaving this in.
That's what I told her. I was like, his name's John Johns, and it's spelled J'Onn, J'Onn.
Because we don't get to see the kind of fun gimmick about Martian Manhunter is he's literally just an alien trying to do human things, and he doesn't know. He's more similar to like Spock meets, I'm going completely Star Trek with this. He's like a Spock meets Data and like, yes, I could do human things. I like candy bars.
A little bit. I think I don't know if I would have cut it out. I may have just let it be Martha and
I would have had
done the reveal.
Yeah.
But I get why he does it. Because again, he doesn't know if he's going to make another one of these.
No, exactly.
He's throwing the kitchen sink.
Absolutely.
Here's how I would have thought of a way to do it. Have like these characters show up, like have Harry Lennox's character show up early on and everything, and then
Harry
at the
Lennox
very
does show up.
end, when he floats down to talk to Affleck, he starts talking about it, and we get flashbacks to all the scenes where characters like walk out the door, and it's him. It's like I was always on your side, and we get to see that. Cool. That would have been really cool.
Or because a lot of people were like, "Where were you when Man of Steel was happening? We could really used your help."
But okay, so none of that stuff was reshot. That's the funny thing about it.
Yeah, that was all.
The only thing that was reshot was the Harry Lennox part. They shot the Diane Lane scene.
Okay, so originally the movie was probably going to be that if it was going to be it was going to be Jon Stewart at the end, that was probably originally going to be Diane Lane.
No, it was
always going to be.
It was always meant to be Manhunter because he showed the storyboard, and then it shows him turning into Manhunter and then into Harry Lennox. If you notice during that scene, the Harry Lennox part is on a green screen. The background's a little disjointed from his actually when he walks in front of it. They shot that in front of his Zack Snyder's house by his garage door, and they just kind of edited it into the movie.
Are you talking about in the first cameo?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The actual Martha and Amy Adams scene was already shot.
And that was always going to be Manhunter?
Yes.
Okay. So they just put Harry Lennox back in.
Yeah. I think what you're thinking is like the end, they added Manhunter when it was probably supposed to be. Because you notice Affleck's dialogue doesn't refer to him in any particular way. He's like, can I help you? Well, that could be anybody.
No,
it could have been the Hulk.
But no, when Kevin Smith talked about the movie on his podcast, when they were talking about the test screenings, they specifically said that it was Kilowog and somebody else actually came to him.
It was supposed to be Tamar Ray.
Yeah, Tamar Ray.
There we go.
But yeah,
nobody knows who those two people are. Or
most people know who Kilowog is. If you know anything about Green Lantern,
but not as much as Jon Stewart because he was on the
Jon Stewart is
and also we haven't had Jon Stewart as performed on television or movies. Say this,
Harry Lennox would have been a good Jon Stewart.
He would have been a good Jon Stewart.
Yeah, I kind of like him more as the
I do too.
He's got the gravitas for it.
I do too, but he would have been a good Jon Stewart.
He could have also been the person that I thought was playing him originally, which would have been Lance Reddick. But no, I don't actually now like Lance Reddick. Probably not.
Yeah,
maybe not.
I feel like what was I going to say? God damn it. No, I liked the Martian Manhunter scene for what it is. I understand the argument of like, well, why does he care so much about Lois? And I think it's because he's in the last two movies, he spent sort of a lot of time with Lois, and he knows kind of who Superman is by this point. So I think he's like, because at the end he turns back into Harry Lennox and says, "The world needs you too, Lois." So obviously he cares, but it kind of brings to the question, how does he know all this personal stuff that Martha Kent would feel?
The future of this universe is going back to that scene with the Flash popping through and saying Lois is the key. We don't know what that key is yet.
Well, the key is we know because Snyder told us or whatever.
Right.
If Lois Lane dies, Superman will succumb to the anti-life.
Right. So but that's also, I imagine, something that somehow that John Johns knows.
Maybe that played into something that happens in the later movies and the storyboards that we don't know about.
Yeah, because he says at the end, Darkseid's not finished with Earth. The anti-life is here, and we have to find it.
Right.
So. Let's talk about the last scene.
Yeah.
The last scene.
Yeah.
That is the last scene.
That's the last scene.
Before
But
the last scene.
The scene that was a real. This one's very fascinating.
And actually a reshoot. They're both technically reshoots, but that one is the actual.
This one is like completely redone though, right?
They got back. They didn't get back Ezra Miller because Ezra Miller's CGI. His face is not real. This is a stunt guy in the Flash suit, and then it's just
then they just
his face.
Whoa.
Why didn't they get? He was shooting something else, wasn't he?
But so it's Mira. I love that in the storyboards for what his Justice League 2 and 3 would be, it's Deadshot. Here it's Deathstroke.
Yeah, it's Deathstroke. Yeah.
Because we do get and I was right. I told you that Lex Luthor was going to hire Deathstroke to kill the Batman, which is always going to be the original
was supposed to set up the original Batman movie.
So we got that scene, and then it cuts immediately to the new Nightmare, where we have our ragtag Justice League is now Batman, Cyborg, Flash, Mira, Deathstroke, Joker,
and Joker.
Yeah. Someone posted a cool poster of them, like the old Justice League poster was "You can't save the world alone." It was all them standing in their Alex Ross pose, and now it's "You can't end the nightmare alone," and it's this ragtag group of
just
murderers.
Tired.
And stuff. Yeah.
This was the moment where I was like, God damn it, that's a good Jared Leto scene.
You like it? A lot of people don't.
Yes, I did. Yes, the line alone, I rewound it a few times to watch it again.
A truce, Bruce?
No, that's good. That's good. It's maybe I'll understand why you sent a boy wonder to do a man's job. Apparently that was improvised.
I think like that whole thing was improvised.
It's half and half.
Yeah.
So Snyder wrote dialogue and told him to play around with it.
It sells. It's this character who I did not like, humbled. In the only way that Joker could be humbled, but in the idea that it's like the joke has gone too far for him, and now he's just kind of like whatever. I like that. I like seeing the Joker in this position.
I went
it's
back
very
and forth on this
interesting.
scene for a while. Like, do I like it or do I not? I always liked it. Do I like him or do I not?
Right.
And I fell down on I do like it. And I'll get to a couple of things. One, I love the idea that there's one part I don't like. His laugh at the end when Superman shows up feels very intentional.
Yeah.
But laughter is something that's supposed to be unintentional.
Yeah.
Because when Superman shows up, he literally looks at him, turns back, and goes, ah. And just, like, looks up in the sky. I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But the stuff between him and Bruce, a lot of people are really making fun of, and I think it's the best
I'm gonna
stuff.
fucking kill you.
Yeah.
I thought that
I
knew-
will fucking kill you.
Yeah, I knew that line was coming, and I thought it was going to be more grimdark, and it wasn't. It was just like, when I kill you, and I will fucking kill you. I was like, okay, no, this feels personal. Yeah. But I thought it, from how people reacted, I thought he was just going to say, I'm going to fucking kill you. And I was like, that's going to be funny if he does it that. But it wasn't.
I heard someone even say that, like, Zack Snyder is homophobic because Joker says he's going to give him a reach around. But he says that before he threatens to kill him.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah, I mean, it's not. No. Well,
That
that's a
doesn't make-
stretch. That's a huge stretch
Yeah.
because it's just
Yeah.
the Joker being an asshole.
Yeah.
The reach around line I didn't feel like was completely necessary.
No, I
No,
felt like it
well,
was.
it's unnecessary, which is why the Joker would say
Right.
No,
it.
absolutely. Yeah. I
Truce.
going back to Leto's character, I have always stood by the fact that I thought Jared Leto got sold short in Suicide Squad, first of all. But that's another story for something else.
Yeah. When the Suicide Squad movie comes out, we'll have to do a rewatch of the original and do an
Yeah.
episode or something, like a bonus
That's fair.
episode.
I'll watch it again.
You don't have to come if you don't want to, but we're probably going to do it.
I go back to the point that I always thought that Leto had the potential to be an amazing Joker,
They just
and that
never let
that
him
character
do
was done
anything.
wrong in Suicide Squad. It was written poorly, and the course correction screwed it up even further. However, this is more along the lines of the Joker that I wanted from him anyways. However, and I may have said this to you, but I said this to somebody, I think he did a phenomenal job, and I think that whole scene is brilliant. It's very comic book accurate, too, in a sense. Like, the dialogue's not exactly comic book accurate, but the way it's portrayed is comic book accurate in a sense.
I thought the part where he's like, how many dead eyes can you look into before you grow numb to death? And he goes, how many abysses can you stare into or whatever until you die inside yourself? I thought that was really good.
No, but
And it sounds like something I would read in like a confrontation. between the
and
two of
mainly,
them.
I guess mainly I'm pointing to like the reach around comment and all that stuff there. But the point that the thing that I am getting,
That's
and
because children read comic books sometimes, so you can't put that reference in.
Sure, but DC comics are a bit darker than some.
No, I'm saying like if a kid walks into a comic book shop and picks up a comic book, like
Yeah.
you can't put that in there.
Yeah,
'Cause
sure.
the editor will be like, you can't put this in there.
Yeah.
Make it a different joke.
Right.
But here, Zack Snyder
Make it a little
wrote
more
was like,
subtle, but it's like
He's like, I'll do
this
what I
is
want.
this is
I'll do what I want, goddammit.
but
This
also
might be my
this
last
is
movie.
this sequence is the bad time. This
Yeah.
is the worst case scenario.
Anyway, back to what I was saying. I think that Leto's character, and I think Leto did a great job with that character as much as he was, but I don't think he's ever gonna be. He's not Ledger. He's not Joaquin Phoenix. He did a great job.
Yeah.
And he was
yeah.
good, but he's not ever going to be on the iconic status of what Phoenix has become and what Ledger is.
But I will
said-
say this scene I think takes a lot away from the gunk that he had on him.
Yeah.
And has put him up into potential.
Yes.
I don't need him to continue this character.
No, I
unless
don't either.
it's something really dynamite. But I don't need it. I'm glad he got a moment to be kind of like have a secret arc for this character.
Would
that
you
no
like
one
to
saw.
see him in like Justice League 3, I think, is supposed to take place
All Nightmare.
halfway in most half of it is supposed to be like all Nightmare. Would you like to see this ragtag group of Justice League?
Yes,
with him
yes, I
on
would.
it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would. Yes, I would. I want. I would. That's the only version of this I would like to see. Is I want to
He's
see
got a
this character with
SWAT
pathos.
vest with a bunch of Gotham PD badges
Yeah,
all over it.
he's
And
been.
he's wearing
Which
what-
is surprised that he's just killed everybody, and he's like, oh, I hate it here.
And he's
It's
wearing
so
what
boring.
looks like a asylum.
Yeah, he's got an Arkham sort of thing out, and it's mentioned that like. It's the line where he says, "When Harley Quinn was dying in my arms, she told me to kill you or
To do it slow or whatever.
to take it slow."
Also, he has a great multiverse line. Like, how many timelines do you doom to destruction because you don't have the cojones to die yourself?
Yep.
Leaning into the fact that Batman was supposed to die to save sort of Superman and Lois or whatever.
Yes.
Which I think is a great character arc.
And I like the
Which
idea
is
that
what was
Joker
supposed
would
to
be
happen
the
in the third
character that's aware of it.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. That he'd be the one to be like, "Oh, I know that there's other universe. I know that there's other plot lines to this little thing that you're writing that you held the pen to."
Where do you think they're going? when he tells I think
they're just
Deathstroke, he goes, "Where are we going?" It's somewhere he won't think to look for us.
What I've heard is where they're going is they're trying to, I think, get to either the Batcave or something to do with Barry Allen.
No, because he knows where the Batcave is.
You're right.
And he knows where Wayne Manor is because that became the Hall of Justice, which is destroyed now.
Yes.
Right.
So where is
I
it?
think I think what I've seen that
Clark's old apartment?
they're trying to get back to a point to where what I've read is that they were trying to get somewhere where they could actually set up the scene for Barry to go back in time into the Batcave, the whole "I'm too soon" scene. So it may have had something to do
maybe
with
they're trying to get back to the ship.
I'm really shocked that you
Kryptonian
liked
ship.
that. I was really expecting you to kick that
I
scene.
liked it, man. I did. I was very. I don't know. You never know what's gonna land with me.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
I thought it was all right.
It was a big.
You'll
it
notice
was a
at
big
the
exciting
end they
moment.
use a clip from Batman v Superman for Superman because evil Superman technically shows up at the end, and it's the shot from the beginning of BVS where he saves Lois from the desert when he comes in through the top of that little hut or whatever.
Yeah.
And he looks up at her, but they make him look all evil. You can see some of the green screen on the edge, just like they had to pop it in there.
Well, the
They
one
couldn't do
thing,
reshoots.
the one thing, it's like they're all getting ready, and I'm like, what are you even gonna do? How are you gonna solve this?
So was that whole sequence with Affleck, was that reshot too?
The Martian Manhunter sequence at the end
No.
and the Nightmare sequence are both reshoots.
Okay, so that whole sequence, is, with the exception of
You'll
Ezra
notice
Miller.
at the end, Ben Affleck looks real healthy, unlike the
Yeah, he
theatrical
did.
version.
yeah. I've gotten a nap.
It's long gone.
I've gotten a week nap. Gotten to do some. I binged a little
Did some
bit.
sit-ups.
I kicked my alcohol problem again.
Yeah. So, but he looks great, and that brings us to the end, which leads us to our post conversation of should it continue, will it continue, and I had another thing I was going to say.
What are the consequences?
Should you review bomb Kong versus Godzilla to make it happen? Short answer is no. Leave that movie alone.
That movie's gonna be great.
I'm excited for it. It's coming out next week.
I want to.
No, it's Wednesday. 2 days from
Oh
now.
yeah, that's right.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the
we'll do
31st.
an episode on that then.
Oh yeah. Feels great to have another movie that I know I'm gonna enjoy. Probably.
Can we do a podcast on Mortal Kombat too?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
I'm
why not?
stoked.
Let's do that because that looks like a blast.
He freezes his blood, then he stabs him.
Wait, sorry. Have you seen the original, like the '95 Mortal Kombat movie?
I grew up on it.
Okay,
everyone
cool.
has.
Yeah.
I was just making sure.
It's
It's a guilty pleasure.
I don't know how
Fun
old
and-
you are, is why I asked that question. So it's like,
yeah. I'm in my early 30s.
Okay, cool.
So
We're
yeah,
probably about the same age.
Yeah, we're about the same age.
I'm 72 years old.
You look great.
It's calisthenics. You gotta keep
I mean,
the
you gotta
joints
love.
limber.
You gotta love of Christopher Lambert, right? And just.
He's such crazy. He's so
I
crazy.
love him.
And they replace him with James Remar.
Big letdown. A podcast I listened to said that was
Highlander
that was
back.
like Raiden left and then like stepdad Raiden returned and is like, hey, I'm back. Hey,
Got a buzz cut.
I got a buzz cut.
I got rid of my cool
I'm
hat
like
that everyone
slimy.
can we talk about all this on that podcast?
Yeah, we'll talk about that
yeah. We'll save that.
I
for-
want to do that one too because that's gonna be fun.
I had this whole big thing I was going to say
Sorry.
about like outside of this movie and the consequences of things and all that, but I
Do
feel
it.
like we're so. I'm glad you brought those points up because this is. I don't want us to get in too long a discussion about this. 'Cause I think we're all in the same.
Do we want to start with
Page
what
here.
Warner Brothers has said?
Yeah,
Put that
let's
in
go
quotes.
ahead and
So-
talk about what the status. of
And
things are.
Sarnoff has said, who is the head of Warner Brothers, but is not the head of Warner Media or HBO Max. And it's worth pointing out that HBO Max are the people that made this happen. Warner Brothers did
And that
not
goes back
make
to what you were saying.
Yeah,
earlier,
Yes.
Warner
that
Brothers
there's
did not
two
make this happen.
parties now that are kind of
Yeah,
So, Ann Sarnoff has said two things. I think it's one, I don't want to criticize the CEO here, but like, I think it's short-sighted what she said. But what she did say was, we will not be pursuing David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad, and this concludes Zack Snyder's trilogy. It was never a trilogy. It was always a 5-film arc. Anyway, but so that's what she said. And as soon as it happened, the first thing a lot of people online said is, why would you say that, right? As your movie is debuting.
Right.
You're kind of taking the wind out of the sails. And this movie has been, by all accounts, a success. In Canada, on Crave, their app, it's the most streamed thing in history, like beating Game of Thrones. Like, it crashed HBO Go's servers, a bunch of other. So it seems to have done pretty solid at the very least.
I was looking at box office like comparison numbers.
Yeah.
It's already grossed in the first week that it was out. Already grossed more money than what the theatrical cut grossed in its entire run.
I heard something like that.
650 million and counting was where it was at as of 1 week.
I don't know how
release.
how that's calculated.
I don't know how
that's
that's calculated either. But like, it's got to be something in the same way like music streaming is counted towards
something like subscribers per and how many repeat viewings divided by blah blah blah.
It's it's like if somebody puts your album on repeat on Spotify, you know, you get paid for that. I mean,
and
people are putting the Snyder Cut on repeat.
And they just released the statistics that said this is HBO Max's most viewed thing they've ever released, and they had a huge uptick, like 9% in subscribers.
And HBO Max has a lot of very desirable material on it.
Yeah. This was what they banked HBO Max on to start HBO Max. Was this right here?
It goes back to what we were talking about a year ago, where I was like, I would not be surprised if when HBO Max drops, this will drop as a release title,
exclusive only,
right? Almost like whenever they're like, oh, the new PlayStation's coming out, a Grand Theft Auto's coming out as a release title, or Nintendo does it with Mario. I was like, this is going to be there, and they didn't do it on time, mostly because of COVID, but very close to it. And I was like, yeah, this is their flagship production, and it makes sense that the boards at HBO are going to be like, well, this is very good for us, but the boards at Warner Brothers are like, we weren't going to, hem ourselves onto this whole thing.
So Ann Sarnoff has said no and no to Ayer Cut and to more of this. I'll show my cards and say I think that's a mistake, and I'll get into the reasons why later. But a lot of people questioned the timing of it because she did it like 2 days after it debuted, and people were like, it feels like a lot of people in like the YouTube community, like the big scoopers or whatever, were like, it is not a coincidence that the head of Warner Brothers came out to shoot down more of this as this was happening. This is a calculated thing,
right?
So let's get into.
It was a way, I imagine, for them to say like, we did this, but we can't bend to every desire.
Well, and it's also another thing, like, you're talking about that. It's like they've done what they can to downplay it every time. I still think that, if you want to get into like conspiracy stuff, I still think that the accidental release during the Tom and Jerry thing was purpose, like to try to shoot people down.
I just love the idea of a kid trying to watch Tom and Jerry
and then get in that movie,
get, like decapitate on Amazon,
right? Well, they got that far into the movie, like
it was like the first hour of it streamed in place of Tom and Jerry, but the other thing is before the movie came out, before it released, you also saw another thing, how they were talking about how it was a cul-de-sac, and like they're trying to go over all that stuff, and trying to make sure that it's not. They were trying to get people to automatically preconceive their idea of what this movie was going to be. It's unsalvageable. It's unwatchable. That whole idea. They were trying to maintain.
2 weeks ago, before this came out, it was Warner Brothers executives are unimpressed with the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, that one.
And I was like, what does that mean? Like, these are the people that cut down BVS by like 30 minutes and like that greenlit the 2017 version of this movie. That means nothing. Like,
that's exactly how I felt about that.
But let's talk about. I want to get to I'll talk about why I think they should do it. Let's talk about the Restore the Snyderverse people. Let's talk about toxic fandom, and I think we can start it off this way. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad trailer just released, and James Gunn actually released a quote. Or not, he didn't release a quote. He went on Twitter and said something like, I've seen a couple of, it was something like this, I'm paraphrasing. I've seen a couple of dickheads saying they don't want Warner Brothers to do anything else but the Snyderverse, but a lot of the people in the comments have been really respectful and are excited for my movie. They just also want more of Zack's movie. So he's basically being more or less supportive of it, which is not surprising because
he's seeing what I've been seeing, which is, I feel like
the people review bombing Kong versus Godzilla before it's even out by saying restore the Snyderverse.
I feel like
punishing Adam Wingard for nothing.
Well, it's not.
Adam Wingard's probably like, I'd like to see that too. Don't do it to me.
Right. It's not a punishment because of what I fear is going to happen, and this is why I mean it's completely separate from the production and almost completely separate from Zack Snyder, because what you have here, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds of it, I feel like it's important to bring up.
Get into the weeds as much as you want.
You have from what started as the release of Snyder Cut, that is almost this DIY grassroots sort of organization. Granted, it's you put context in it, it's so a millionaire could make a movie that he wanted to make. So, my sympathies are with Zack all the way through, but also keep in mind, this is, these are also very wealthy people who are getting to do things that we'll never be able to do.
Probably.
But we got to see a product we wanted to see. I feel like now that this has gone on, the Restore the Snyderverse thing has the potential to no longer be about that, and has the potential to become what a lot of online, very savvy, very troll and shitpost-based fraternity groups end up becoming.
Get rid of the sequel trilogy and remake The Last Jedi and only do stuff that I like.
I think eventually I could see this movement going to a point where Zack Snyder will no longer matter. Where if Zack Snyder comes out and says, "Guys, I appreciate the enthusiasm. I want to see more of it, but I don't support some of the efforts you're making," and they'll say, "Fuck Zack Snyder. It's about us now."
Yeah.
And I think that I don't want to be too much of the naysayer, because obviously as this year has gone on, I've become more sympathetic to this production. I won them over, audience. but
one down, 6 billion to go.
But with the understanding that, and I feel like even talking about something like toxic fandom, isn't really getting to the point of what this is, which is,
So would you like to hear what Zack said about it first?
I would. I just want to finish up real quick with the thing saying that, like, I feel like I've seen a lot of comparisons to when you give a mouse a cookie. And it's like,
what happens when you give? Is that a nursery rhyme?
Yeah, you give a mouse a cookie.
He takes the whole bag.
They want more. Okay. They want more. And I'm like,
cookies are delicious.
I don't mind seeing the Snyderverse. I mean, obviously, I'm for the Snyderverse, but not at the cutting down of other creatives. My sympathies are not with Warner Brothers. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation that destroys other creatives on a regular basis.
This is what the argument seems to be. It's like there's two factions, and I would say 90% of it is, look, I want to see the Batman and Black Adam 2, but I also want to see Justice League 2 and 3. Or if you notice at the end of the movie, Ryan Choi is given his card, and it says new head of nanotechnology. Wink, wink. He's going to become the Atom.
He's going to become the Atom.
Zack Snyder said, I wanted to do an all-Asian Atom movie in China or whatever. And he goes, and Warner Bros. Said no or whatever. So, like, people want just Justice League 2 or 3 and some of the potential spin-offs that were supposed to be here, a la the Batman or that Deathstroke prequel from Gareth Evans or whatever. So from what I've seen is, because I saw a Twitter post about this as well, which is like, if you're a person that wants release the Snyder Cut was a movement all about giving an artist his creative freedom. Mm-hmm. And now you can't turn around and say, I only want this artist's creative freedom. You have to give that to all the artists, or it doesn't matter. And most of the people are like, I don't want to get rid of all the DC stuff. I just want, if we're talking, and I'll get to my point later because I don't want to talk about it yet, but I just also want him to be able to continue his story, and the money seems to talk. It seems to be successful.
Right.
So why
we've not
both?
Yet seen the full effect of where this is going. We're only a couple of weeks in.
Yeah, and we probably won't. We probably won't for another few weeks, but
Blake,
it seems to be doing solid.
Yeah, and Blake, like you brought up, I didn't think about the fact that now there's
HBO Go.
There's a
HBO
contingency
Max.
In the HBO Max world that's going to be going up against Warner Brothers and all that. We could be reaching something very interesting, but I worry about what this civil war of interests from both the biggest stockbrokers down to the smallest keyboard warrior is going to be.
Do you think it's going to become 90-10 to like 50-50 real quick? Or?
Well, I think it's going to become nothing that has any control over anything. Like, I think, for every person I see out there saying, guys, I really want this to happen, but you guys cannot go on there and talk, nasty about James Gunn or talk nasty about this. It doesn't make sense. It's not what we're about. Eventually, those voices have the potential to no longer matter to them, and they'll just be like, well, we're going to embrace the most cruel aspects of us to get what we want because it shows that it works. Yeah. But they didn't win this over by just a contingent of cyberbullying. This was also a lot of really good moves and things, passionate moves,
like huge charity drives,
things,
giant billboards,
the billboards,
New York Times.
That goes way beyond
planes flying over Warner Brothers. It says release this damn thing.
San Diego Comic-Con and stuff like
big
that.
actors who were involved with it doing it as well. Like, this was something that was
in
earned.
fact, Joe Manganiello just went on a Twitch stream for another AFSP for a charity drive with him and Zack Snyder. So it's still happening as we speak.
So it's that's the beautiful story of all this, that the negativity kind of stayed in the social media realm to duke it out amongst each other while this better thing came about. It's now, it no longer has that singular vision and its potential to be corrupted. And
a rebel without a cause. They got the
or
Snyder
their
Cut,
cause
so what's-
becomes, if I don't get what I want, we'll burn it all down.
Well, and the thing that is kind of a point to look at from that too is like the whole thing started as a fact of like really kind of like, if you look at it from one perspective, the Snyder Cut was they put out the 17 movie and said it was Snyder's movie.
Right.
We're just getting it over the finish line.
If I go and grab a DVD copy of Justice League, it says Zack Snyder as a director.
Yes,
And
it
it's
does
like,
not say Joss Whedon anywhere in there.
No.
Oh, it says written by Chris Terrio and Joss Whedon.
Okay.
Because he got a screenwriting credit.
So, anyways,
But he's not listed as
the thing
Zack
is
Snyder.
it
and
was
Joss
never that was not 80% of that movie was not Zack Snyder's.
Or it was repurposed for a different intention.
Sure.
So it might be Snyder's scene, but it plays differently
Yeah.
to a different thing.
Mm-hmm. And but the thing is the whole thing started like kind of started with Zach. It's like, okay, the tragedy that happened within his family and everything like that. It's like he got shafted on this movie. It's clear he got shafted on
And it
the
was
movie.
very public. That was the thing. Like, this was a very public upset.
He was a Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
He took it on the chin.
Because there's a lot of situations where that's happened. You hear stories all the time about people coming out and saying that wasn't what my movie was. This was
on
big.
another end of that. I feel like the toxicity side of it is not the side that helped make this movie entirely happen. You know what I mean? The people who've been there from the beginning are the people who see it that way,
And
not
it's-
the people who are out there going, "Give me it." You know what I mean?
And when you talk about the internet, it's hurting cats. Not everybody's going to come at it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
It's a rogue army.
A vocal
you know?
minority can still be a problem. They can still bully Rose Tico off of Twitter.
Yeah.
Or not Rose Tico. Kelly Marie Tran.
Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose Tico.
Yeah, who plays Rose Tico in The Last Jedi. They can still bully her off Twitter, even though most people might be like, I don't really like these Disney sequels or whatever. That's perfectly fine. And I think it is still mostly like good-hearted people. And, for whatever it's worth, while Marvel was re-releasing Endgame back into theaters to beat Avatar to make the most money, the Snyder Cut people were hosting charity drives. So, like, there's, if the toxic fandom, I think that argument only goes so far. But that being said, even a vocal minority can still review bomb Kong versus Godzilla.
And it could be the bad press that gets released
And it can
out
be,
there.
and I think, like
because
Matt, it can be
optics.
weaponized. It
Yeah.
can be weaponized by a cynical corporation who doesn't care. They just want your money.
Well, here's the thing: is like we were
Well, they
talking.
all, in the end, just want your money.
Yeah.
That, like I said earlier, I read an article today that had to do with the HBO Go is the ones who are wanting this. It appears that HBO Go is saying we
HBO
want
Max.
to, or I'm sorry, HBO Max.
It's gone through so many different. There was HBO Now, HBO Go,
Yeah, right.
HBO Max,
HBO Plus.
HBO,
HBO
home
Asia.
box office.
The DC network or whatever it was for a little while too. That's now part of HBO Max.
Yeah, I'm glad that I love some of those shows. I'm glad they're still around.
But anyways, so they released an article, or I saw an article from somebody today. I can't remember if it was from like Looper or CBR or somebody like that, but it was basically saying that HBO Max is wanting to do more Snyderverse. They want to keep the Snyderverse. They want to not necessarily restore the Snyderverse, but this has shown that they have faith.
Keep the content rolling.
They want to continue with his. They
Because-
want to see his story fleshed out the rest of
Because
the way.
of course they would.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good for business.
Right. But what
it's
you
a flagship operation.
But what you get here's where it's going to come down to. I don't think Warner Brothers is going to let Zack Snyder ever touch their characters again. I really don't. Just the way that and I could be wrong.
But HBO Max supersedes them because HBO Max goes directly to AT&T.
I was actually about to bring that
I
point
was
up.
wondering who's higher on the food chain.
What was it? What was it? It's Walter Hamada, but wasn't like Kevin Sujihara.
Walter Hamada is the head of DC Films, and Sarnoff is the head, or Toby Emmerich is the head of Warner Brothers Productions.
But Kevin
and
Suji-
Sarnoff is the head of Warner Brothers. Period.
But
And
wasn't
Jason Kilar is the head of HBO Max, and he's above her.
Wasn't Sujihara like the head of? In that was
Yeah,
his
but he
name?
got fired from Me
But
Too.
he was from. But what was he at? What was he?
He was now Ann Sarnoff is.
Okay. So he was
head
the
of
one
Warner
who also
Brothers.
had his hands a lot in the 17 cut of Justice League.
Yes.
So you're saying the guy that's in HBO Max's head position is over and Sarnoff.
Technically, yeah.
Okay, so if they go straight to AT&T, AT&T is the ones who will ultimately get to make the call if HBO wants to get it going. But the real question is who's going to come back? Are they going to allow Ray Fisher to come back? Are they going to is Cavill going to recommit? Is Ben Affleck going to recommit?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is like much like if somebody on the level of Zack Snyder even pops up and says like,
I think Zack wants to do it.
No, he said that. In a perfect world, I'd like to do it. I don't think there's. I think I can. When I look at his answers, I can read between the lines of Warner Brothers doesn't want to do it because it rubs in the face a lot of the egos that are still in that company that thought that 2017 version was a smart move, and they're still there. Toby Emmerich, he's still there, like, and it makes him look like egg on his face, and it's a bunch of ego bullshit. Now, to be fair, Walter Hamada didn't come in until after like Aquaman.
Right.
Yeah.
He's kind of been
Who
like
was in that position before him.
It was Jeff Johns and John Berg for the longest time. They were in that Justice League and Aquaman place. So Jeff Johns is what's right. He's outski. Like,
I knew all the stuff back in 2017. I just can't remember it.
So
it's a lot.
It's like the like you said, reading the Wikipedia page of Abraham Lincoln. It would be
like when I first looked at the book Too Big to Fail. You open it and it shows the dramatis personae of all the different banks and everybody who's involved, like who was in charge of Bear Stearns, who was in charge of Lehman Brothers, and it's like this
JP
would
Morgan,
be that.
yeah.
You would open it and be like, so and so was in this, so and so was in this.
Jeff Johns and John Berg are gone, and they brought in Walter Hamada, and Walter Hamada just got his contract extended. Walter Hamada is kind of the guy that a lot of people look at as he's the one that said it's a cul-de-sac, which, by the way, if we look at it just logistically, what does this movie set up directly? It's not a cul-de-sac. It sets up Batman, The Atom, Justice League 2, Justice League 3. That's like 4 projects
Manhunter,
right there, and potentially, well, he would be Justice League 2 and 3,
right?
But like what it directly sets up is like 4 projects.
Well, and the Flash too,
and the Flash, but the Flash is already happening. Yeah, right. So like new things that it sets up are obvious. And Walter Hamada this is my reason as to why it should happen. Walter Hamada made all this hoopla when DC Fandom came out about multiverse. We're leaning into the multiverse. Everything can exist at the exact same time. We got the CW shows and all of our new DC stuff are going to have HBO Max shows.
They got the Batman coming out. We got everything else.
It's going to get an HBO Max show, and the Suicide Squad gets an HBO Max show. We're crossing all the streams.
Flashpoint's going to have Michael Keaton in it.
Or maybe not now because he's like concerned about COVID. I don't know. Bring back Jeffrey Dean Morgan, please. Anyway, do Thomas Wayne Batman. Anyway, but all of a sudden, then he goes like, but no more Zack Snyder. And I think the reason for that is like weirdly personal because he got this win, and it makes. Because Walter Hamada, like any executive, wants his brand to be the one that everyone likes. So he's looking at maybe.
Well, then quit doing stupid shit with it.
But maybe he's looking at like what Snyder has accomplished and is being like, I don't want to share that spotlight with another concurrent universe or whatever.
And I don't want to go too far into that because we don't know.
We don't know anything.
And I'm not on the conspiracy.
To be fair, Walter Hamada.
In the end, I think it's always follow the money because these are businesses. I always go with the strict.
And to be fair, Walter Hamada greenlit Shazam, a movie that I really liked. So like, I'm not saying he's done nothing, but I am saying like, if we can have everything all at once, why wouldn't you do that too? They don't logically follow.
Because again, I have no sympathies to Warner Brothers, but I have to imagine like this was a moment of stress for them to be like, fine, we'll do it. And ended up being successful, but mostly successful for HBO.
Yeah.
Just going to point out it's been a whole 3 years of stress for them.
Yeah. And like they like
not just a moment.
Zack Snyder tweet like
that's true.
Zack in this book right here, Zack Snyder said they were completely handcuffed. They couldn't post anything without a horde of people descending into the comments being like, "Fuck Elmo, release the Snyder cut."
Right, right.
It's like no one that they wanted it, and like you can listen or you can ignore it. Yeah. And Zack has said if you want me to do more of it, there's 2 things you can do. You can tweet it out and you can put it on repeat. And that's what I did. I went on Twitter. I said, "Hey WB, thanks for releasing it. Maybe restore that Snyderverse next or whatever." And then I watched the movie.
Like, and maybe it's because of me. Like I think when I first started seeing in the last few days the restore the Snyderverse thing popping up, it rubbed me the wrong way. And I think that's just me personally. Like I'm like.
Did it rub you the wrong way is it because like, and I saw it too. I saw a lot of positive comments, but I saw enough negative ones in like a Kong versus Godzilla comment
or the
section,
Suicide
or the
Squad,
Suicide
where
Squad.
it's just like
is that the thing that
where it feels like how that's why my conspiracy is that it's going to become something more nebulous and something less, again, where they could even shut Zack Snyder aside and it becomes this different brand. But that's also possibly not going to happen, you know, and it all depends on, I think, what's going to happen by the end of the year when everything kind of, you know, because I think also we're in a very, very, very strange time for movies.
Yeah, we are.
Because that's also like in the other alternate universe where COVID didn't do this to us, what would have happened?
Oh, it probably wouldn't have come out if there's no HBO Max. When I saw the release the Snyder Cut movement, for all the dickheads on Twitter, I saw for every one, I saw 100 people whose heart was in the right place. They were sort of coming around a creative who they really respected, and they were mourning and grieving with him, and that became also a rallying cry for artistic expression and creative freedom.
It felt very unique.
Charity drive.
This felt very unique.
It is very unique. There are no other fan movements like it. It's weird that Zack Snyder has this kind of. I've said it before. I don't know any other director that has this kind of like right hand to his fans. It's like you said Jordan Vogt Roberts talks to them a lot and stuff. And
but he's also very sophomore. Like he's getting some big projects, but it's not like Zack Snyder.
He hasn't had 12 years of
who
whatever.
had 2 films and got the visionary on his title.
Oh yeah,
now.
with Watchmen or whatever.
Yeah. It was like after 300, he was the visionary Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
So he's.
I don't know anyone that has that kind of pull. And it's strange that we live in a world, but I felt that release.
We even live in a society which was not in this movie.
Yes,
that was only for the trailer.
He did it just for the trailer, just to fuck with everybody.
Great.
But I felt like it was a very organic grassroots movement where its heart was in the right place. And it's worth saying they were right. There was a Snyder Cut. It was out there. It was able to be released. You could finish it up. Now it's all theoretical. It's not is it, it's should it.
Right.
And I'm worried that if it strays away from the charity donations, the creative freedom, is it going to lose its way? That's the real question. Is that what you're worried about?
Yes.
Is
well,
it gonna lose its way?
I feel like now that it's complete, it has the potential to become kind of a monster that becomes all encompassing, and because where it becomes we now know what we're capable of, and in the wrong hands we can hold your intellectual properties hostage, and that's too great a power for one group to have.
Is there a part of me is kind of but that's always kind of how it's been. Fans have always spoken up. Now it's just you have the internet, so it's immediate. But back in the day, Michael Keaton was cast as Batman. They wrote angry letters to Warner Brothers. But
I think this is what's different is
the scale and the scope.
The scale and the scope, and the fact that this changed things.
Yeah, it's true.
Something changed. Yeah. It's not
this isn't the Donner Cut.
I know I'm never going to get, for how I feel about Rise of Skywalker, I'm never going to get the whatever cut. And I'm like, I have to live with that.
Yeah, because it just didn't exist.
It didn't exist. There's no secret canisters behind every filmmaker.
It's because Justice League is a 1 in a million movie where they just reshot, they just did another movie.
And I think wrapping it up into the thesis of this movie, Zack Snyder's thing, and what we're getting at is this was this big mythological moment, and the fact that it petered out in 2017 and was such a public fuckery or rat finkery, people were just they had faith as Batman had
Alfred,
faith.
Faith, I love it.
This was an act of faith, and it turned out to reveal itself through cryptic clues that were so fun to find. I mean, I'm also just kind of sad to see the mystery of the Snyder Cut go away, because it's like wow, what a journey.
I'm not. If we do get a Justice League 2, I'm going to be careful with what I read. I'm going to try to preserve some mystery for me, for God damn it.
I feel like we've all read what the movies are supposed to be. That's why we want it
I read
so
those
bad.
storyboards. He said, this is from before we rewrote Justice League. Because after Batman v Superman came out, he was like, they got real mad. It's too dark. You need to change some stuff. And because Deadshot is in those storyboards, but he's not in that team that we see at the end. So a bunch of stuff, neither is the Joker. A bunch of that stuff would have changed. He was supposed supposed to have like when the anti-life comes. This is so really cool. It's the only reason I'm saying this. Like the entire world is like the Justice League walks by buildings of people just standing zombified, shoulder to shoulder, looking at the mother boxes, worshiping them. Like it's like dark as fuck. And I was like, there's no way they're gonna let him do that. And it would be really cool if they did.
The one thing that I think it's really going to boil down to, though, and then you talk about should it? It's really, if HBO wants it to happen, if Warner Brothers, I think they're the ones who are going to have the biggest say in it because the characters belong to them.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what it's going to come down to, if it's going to be this big like power war between HBO and Warner Brothers, AT&T's board of directors, the stockholders, are who will end up making the final decision on it.
But it's also, can you get the actors back?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck, to his credit, he did come back for The Flash, and he came back for reshoots for this. As did Ray Fisher, as did Amber Heard, as did all the other people. So, like, I think it's not outside the realm of possibility for him to say,
I think the only reason a lot of the actors stepped away from this movie, and I'm just speaking off the cuff here, like this could be completely off point altogether. I think a lot of the reason that a lot of these characters have stepped away from these parts particularly is because of the way Warner Brothers handled this movie in general. Whether you talk about working for Snyder or whether you talk about just how Warner Brothers didn't give him any creative control or wasn't going to allow him creative control over anything, and then they all got this.
Yeah, it got soured.
Yeah, I think that's why Ben Affleck, they make fun of the sad Ben Affleck memes and stuff like that after BVS and stuff like that. It's like,
but he loved working on that.
He loved that movie. He loved working on it, and then everybody poops on it. Sorry, I have a 4-year-old. Poops.
They pooped on it.
Well, they did. They pooped on his parade. Not his
to be
parade,
fair, though, they loved him, though. They were like, he's great.
He wasn't what was wrong with that movie.
No.
But what's wrong with that movie is they didn't release that movie. They released a version of that movie. A less egregious form of what happened to Suicide Squad, which was a less egregious version of what happened to Justice League.
To Justice League.
Yeah. But
I think it'll come down to like what the stockholders at AT&T ultimately want, and maybe not just the shareholders at AT&T, but if AT&T is who is going to ultimately have the say in it.
I see arguments against like fans shouldn't get out of control, but I don't see any arguments against they shouldn't do it. Like they shouldn't continue a story of movies.
The reality is we may not ever get it.
Yeah. And if we don't get it, I will be sad, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, we got to see the Snyder Cut.
And I think this large fan community has the potential to, if it doesn't happen, do what I've seen other fans do, which is bring it into the fan world and create in their own communities what it could be through like fan animations and fictions and
someone said
do
a comic. Someone said do a comic book run.
Yeah.
If I can't get a movie, obviously, like if I read it as a comic book or an animated deal, I would take both of those.
Yeah.
But like something about seeing it resolved in live action is like it's like you seeing Gundam in live action. You'd be like, "This is what I want. I want to see it on the screen. Damn it! You want to see it on the big screen with people
in the way I want it."
But I want it.
I think this is not the last time we will hear from the Snyderverse.
No,
beyond just shop talk, beyond just shit posting, beyond just hope.
I think the negative stuff is always going to be there. Sadly, it's just something that fandom is. I think the positive stuff will stay there because if they could stay together for 4 years getting this thing to come out, I don't see why
that contingency can't continue. Be active.
And I think Zack is not ignorant of the power he now wields in Hollywood.
No.
And I'd rather it be in someone like his hand. I'd rather it be in someone like his hands than a less scrupulous director. Or unscrupulous?
An unscrupulous director.
I'd rather it was in his hands than a more unscrupulous director.
Because if anything,
like a David O. Russell or someone like someone mean that we don't like.
And this is revealed to me that Snyder's just one of the good dudes in Hollywood.
There was that Washington Post op-ed, like the Snyder Cut proves nice guys can finish first or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I read it. I was like, it kind of does in a way. He's never mean. He never went to like people's Twitter accounts and was like, fans descend upon them. Like, he didn't wield power like Darkseid. Yeah, if anything, he wielded power by like, here's a black and white image from the movie. Here's Ryan Choi as the or Zhang Kai or whatever his name was as Ryan Choi. Like he would just kind of feed the flames and answer questions. Like you can't get mad at him for that. So
I guess that's it.
I think that is it.
That's the Snyder cut.
the
and
catharsis is out.
Yep.
It's a pretty damn good movie, if I can say so myself.
I say you should watch it.
I say you should watch it. I think it's going to come out on 4K Blu-ray, and I'll probably buy it when
That's
it does.
probably a really good way to watch it because it's a feast for the eyes.
I'm not getting. Are you going to get rid of the? I don't know if you have it, but I'm not getting rid of my theatrical version because I want it as like a weird. I want it as a weird
Curio?
version of like, check this out now.
Yeah.
Like, you saw that, son? Look at this.
Look at this.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh God, see that mustache thing that's going on there? Oh,
Yeah,
you
it
have no
now
idea.
exists as this strange other alternative timeline. It's like, here's this one. Weird.
If it does
weird.
get released, or a sequel does get released, we can start the next chapter of our podcast together. Next week we'll talk about probably Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, man.
You have HBO Max, right?
I sure do.
Okay, you can watch it there. You can come over here and watch it.
Yep. We'll do
And
it.
we'll do that.
We'll talk about some more movie news.
Blake's probably going to come over and talk about. Blake will come over. Oh, there he is. He's back in now. Yeah, Blake will come over and talk about the new Mortal Kombat with
talk
us.
some Mortal Kombat.
What's the next one? Before August, we'll rewatch the original Suicide Squad
Yep.
and talk about that.
And anything in between that may catch our interest.
I predict that if I watch the Suicide Squad, if we watch it together, which I'd like to, it'll be mostly me doing this. That was pretty cool. Oh, that's dumb. like,
what's the point of
it'll
this
be a little,
movie?
it'll be like, that's a cool shot. Oh, that's so bad. Why is his hair different in this scene? Oh, because
That movie moved faster than the plot did. Like, anyway.
This has been The Movie Date with Rob and Matt, a podcast for people who like movies but don't want to be too smug about it.
Thank you for joining us, Blake.
Yes.
Yeah,
You can find us on Podbean and YouTube and Facebook and iTunes, all that good stuff. I've been Rob,
I've been Matt.
I'm Blake.
and we'll
Thank
see you
you for-
guys next time.
Thank you for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye.